Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It is a Tuesday, March 1st. This weather's just going to decide to try to kill me if it can with this back and forth. I think it's supposed to be 80 degrees next Monday, and we're going to have snow and sleet in Colorado this weekend, and it's like 30 at night right now, and it's trying to kill me. It's trying harder to kill Jarrett. He's still with us, though.
Trying and failing.
Jared is efforting, yes.
Yeah, trying to kill me.
Yeah, no. Jarrett is not efforting as much as like Mother Nature trying to kill Jarrett, but he is strong like bull.
Strong like bull.
If only. It hurts to laugh.
It's the best we can do. Let's get into some MLS stuff ahead of Dylan Butler joining us at 9:30. We'll get into some questions in hour number 2, some news of the day. I do want to start with, I've mentioned many times that I generally will throw Te Ise on in the mornings just because, whatever news is going on around the world, a lot of Argentine stuff, but they'll talk about what's going on in Europe as well. They've started a new morning show that is one of the most insane television programs I've ever heard of. Penales. They have a little setup with people taking penalties, like young, probably teenage players. It's the crew that used to do the late night show that was absolutely insane. Now they've put them on in the early mornings in Argentina, which is possibly dangerous. But this show, so they made these kids, they're teenagers, but made them do the dizzy penalty thing, if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Where you have to put your hand down on the ball and run around the ball 8 times and then go up and take a penalty. Oh, my goodness. It's insane. Right now they're having to pop the ball up and hit a volley from the penalty spot, but they're interspersing like news. That's what's crazy about it is it's not just a crazy, silly morning show. Like then they're going to, outside of Boca's training session where they're talking about Battaglia throwing Agustin Almendra out of practice. Like it's insane. It's insane, but I guess it fits, right?
First juggling from the spot, and now news.
Yeah, I mean, they're able to weave it somehow. That actually is a story that I did want to hit on at some point. If you remember our friend Agustin Almendra, who was linked with a move to Atlanta United at one point, he was the player who was, I don't remember all of the details because it was very strange in itself with, I think it was during COVID. He didn't want to come back to training. There were issues with him in the club. He wasn't getting played by the previous manager. Then they had a managerial change. He actually became a very important player in the team after the move to Atlanta didn't happen. Now he is not as important of a player in the team, and he was very disrespectful to the manager, Sebastian Battaglia. Was asked to go to the second group because they signed one of the Romero brothers, just one, which is probably the best way to live these days.
No kidding.
But then he got angry about it. Then he said stuff to the manager. The manager kicked him out. Then they went to the board, and Juan Ramon Riquelme is a huge figure at Boca, as you know, and had a vote, and all the players are like, yeah, we don't want him here either. So, like, they're going to try to get him out of the team at Boca after he had fought his way back into being an important part of the team, which maybe, again, Atlanta dodged it there. Maybe just a bit. On the MLS front this morning, we got a couple bits of news. Over 70,000 tickets sold for Charlotte's home opener this weekend against the LA Galaxy. The upper deck tickets, which were being sold for, I think as low as $15, they're going for over 100 right now on the resale market. Should be a really big celebration on Saturday night, Jarrett, in Charlotte.
It should be, and hopefully they are treated to an enjoyable evening. You know what? Let me have the optimism for 5 seconds.
I'm confused by you having optimism at all, but anyway, proceed.
Hey, you know what? They're a new team in the league. They should be excited, because if we don't have excitement with new teams in the league, then that kind of spills over into everyone being, sourpusses about literally everything. And, let's try and keep some level of excitement in here about a team like Charlotte trying to figure it out. Because it's gonna be a grind, Charlotte. It's gonna be a grind.
Yeah, Jared, I'm going to be a sourpuss about what they've done to build their team because I think that's why they're in the problem that they're in.
No. You can be a sourpuss about the way they built their team, but I hope everyone has a very good time.
Yeah, I think Jared is specifically talking atmosphere and the grand opening and all that kind of stuff of the store. He's not talking about what's inside the store.
Well, all that's wonderful and stuff, and you guys can play in fantasy land, but when they get smoked by the LA Galaxy, you think anybody's going to be having fun?
No.
So then, that's what I'm
it
talking
might,
about.
and it might. It depends on how Galaxy show up, but it might be that kind of game, man.
That's what I'm worried about. I mean, look, and Four Card, you're being a little mean here. He says, I thought it was going to be 74,000. It is Tuesday. The game's on Saturday. They are going to have walk up. Stop, people. They're going to break the record. It's okay. It's not a big deal. It's good. They set aside some game day tickets as well that are going to be low price. That's something they have said they would do always. And Nick Kelly said they would do that for this as well, even though they could probably sell them now. So, yeah, there's going to be a block. I don't know how big it is. For this one, it might be bigger because they're opening the whole place. There's going to be a block they're going to be sold the day of. So it won't be a sellout ahead of the day ever in Charlotte. But if we're starting to complain about somebody selling over 70,000 tickets on Tuesday and the game's on Saturday, man, we're in a different world than we used to be with this league. It's going to be
about it.
It's going to be
like this. Celebrate this. This is good.
Yeah.
They're pushing they're pushing the envelope. Like, Atlanta might not hold that record anymore. Okay.
Yeah, Domer, I don't think they're giving tickets away. I don't think they're giving tickets away. Like, no, there's nothing to throw shade at this about, y'all. This is a good thing. You can throw shade about the team, throw shade about their performance on the field. Absolutely. I've done it plenty. Mm-hmm. But this part of it, no, this is good. This is a good thing for the league. We want people to buy tickets to these games. Now, the question, and it's a fair one, this doesn't go well, and this is the first experience for a lot of people with Charlotte FC. What is the hunger to come back to another game? And that's the part that you can't control. It's sports, right? I mean, when the team's bad, you're not going to sell as many tickets. When the team's good, you're not going to be able to find tickets. This is sports. This is what it is. They're not going to be very good for a while. They should be better if they'd made better decisions with their roster. But right now, they're just not very good. And let's see how they handle this. The Charlotte thing with, setting attendance records and all that, it's fine. Attendance records are nice. I like trophies better, just saying. They're a little more important. I'm not going to get bent out of shape if somebody draws a big crowd. It's a good thing for the league. It's a really good thing for the league. No, they won't do 70,000 every time, Joe Boss. But if they play well and start winning things, then okay, we can have that conversation. Maybe they do. Maybe they open the place up more often. Anyway, Charlotte is doing really well with that side of things, and they deserve a ton of credit. So, no, I mean, I think keep the shade where it needs to be. As a team playing against Atlanta United, have all the shade you want. As a team and what they've done in the way they build the team, have shade. In terms of drawing interest in soccer in their neck of the woods, they've done a great job. They've done a great job. It's a good thing. So, hey, some people are also going in other directions because, man, narratives down here. People like to do it. Good luck to them. I just hope that this isn't a bad performance. I worry that it is, again, because I don't think it was a good performance against DC. It wasn't a 3-0 loss kind of performance, but it wasn't a good, strong performance. This isn't a good, strong roster. They have a very good, strong coach. But, man, he's not a miracle worker last time I checked. They've got to make moves to improve this roster if they want to keep people coming back. That's just the nature of the business, right? If we're going to say that that's not accurate, well, probably shouldn't talk about sports ever again if that's the case. That's just where they have to be. We'll see where it goes.
What's the old adage in sales? You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Well, that's BS. That's absolute total BS. So, John, if we're going to play that game, then why is anybody going to watch any expansion team in any sport that was bad? No, don't they get better?
Yeah, they do.
Don't they change that impression?
And that's the thing.
And then people buy tickets?
Right, people should.
So then, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't apply in sports.
No, because you have sequential opportunities to improve on that first impression. That's why they call them games in a season.
But that's what I'm saying. The first impression thing is BS. It's not true in sports, because if they go on let's play it out. They stink in the first half of the season. They make a great couple of signings in the summer, and then they go 5 games unbeaten. When you have a big team coming at the end of that 5 games unbeaten, you're going to have people coming who might have been like, I did that first game was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Because it's the hot thing right then. So no, I don't know why this happens sometimes. You can make a different impression. You can change the impression. That's sports. So it's not this thing where you're going to draw a big crowd and you don't want to draw a big crowd for game 1 because you're not very good yet. No, you want to draw a big crowd because then that's buzz too.
Yes.
But you've got to build the product on the field to keep people coming back in the long term.
You have to show the effort that you're trying to build and improve, and people gravitate toward that as opposed to a static product and not trying to improve it. Yeah,
there's never one impression in sports, Jarrett. There's always the opportunity for a rebirth in a season, in the next season, with a rebrand, if you want to go all the way down to that. I mean, there's always the opportunity to change your narrative in sports. That's the wonderful thing about it. You're never trapped if you do things in the right way.
Oh, and winning cures a lot of ills.
Always.
That's the other thing about it is things can be bad. If you go out and win some games, you'd be surprised how quickly things can turn on in a good way. And that's what you're counting on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, and this is something that if you paid attention to the pro wrestling wars, if you follow TV ratings, that kind of stuff over the years, when you lose people, it's harder to get them back, but you can get them back. When you have been winning and then, it slides a little bit, the quality slides, you start having a few bad results, people don't abandon ship immediately. They'll hang on for a while and say, it's going to come around. It's going to come around. For a lot of people, there's a breaking point, and it's harder to get them back, but you can absolutely get them back. I think in sports, it's even easier because you make a big signing, you get a bunch of headlines, then that first impression, it doesn't count. It's the next impression, and it's the next impression. You can always change it. Pilgrim, I'm with you. The radio, TV, supporters groups, everything. Charlotte's done well with that. So, I mean, and this is why we've tried to talk about this stuff so you have a picture of it. I think they've botched the roster build, and that's a big disappointment. But they have a radio network. They have a TV network. They have done really well in the community, already building mini pitches. They've had an academy up and running from early on. They've done a lot of the other things really, really well. And a lot of people threw shade at Charlotte for the PSL comments and all of that and what that was going to look like. They're doing great with season tickets. They know their market. They're doing well. I agree with Bart. I thought maybe they would open the full stadium up more this season. Maybe that'll be a special announcement down the road that they'll do later. I don't know. I thought they would do it kind of like Atlanta does for 4 or 5 games. That's a surprise. I don't think it's a big negative, but it's a surprise. I think they're doing a lot of things right. They're doing a whole lot of things right. There's questions about the front office restructuring right before the season started. Was it inevitable? Was it bad luck? Was it bad timing? Is there something else? It's a valid question. The roster build, there's a lot of valid questions about it. But they have a great coach, and they've done a lot of the off the field right, and they're going to have a great night for Major League Soccer in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium on Saturday night with a gigantic crowd on national TV. That's awesome. I hope they get a boost from that crowd, and I hope they can play over their heads because they are not as good of a team on paper as the LA Galaxy. You cannot argue that they're a better team than the LA Galaxy on paper. You can't argue that they should be favored going into that game. If you are, you're being disingenuous. Can you bridge some of that? Yes. And they need to get a huge boost from that crowd because they need that early on. They need to find some momentum from some of the good things that they did against DC. We'll see. We'll see if they can do it. St. Louis has already made a signing. They have added and I just lost it. 1 second. They have added a Czech midfielder, Tomáš Ostrak. Last with Cologne in Germany. He's going to finish the season there, come to St. Louis in the summer. He'll probably play with the MLS Next Pro team in the second half of their season. Born in the Czech Republic, he joined Cologne's academy in 2016. He spent some time in the Austrian Bundesliga on loan. Czech Republic national youth team, caps all the way up through the U21s. So interesting. Bradley Carnell's a Red Bull guy. He's going to be the manager. Pfannenstiel, German pundit. He knows the German league very well. I'm sure this is somebody that he has seen and has heard about and knows very well through all of his contacts. They're going to be, I think it's a safe assumption, Jarrett, that St. Louis is going to be very Red Bull / Gegenpress kind of side. And this is a signing that probably fits into that realm early on.
I don't hate that for an expansion team, too.
No, I do, just because I don't like the style of play, but I'm biased against that.
But if I'm building an expansion team, that's not a bad way to go about it. I think it's easier at times to get a roster built to do that than
absolutely.
So if you want quick results and then you want to work past it down the road, I don't think it's a bad route to go. You will be entertaining.
You can be. You can be also really boring. I think the idea that pressing is always entertaining is not true. Please watch the Philadelphia Red Bulls playoff match from last year that went 120 minutes. And
when you're an expansion team trying to do pressing, and then you might end up creating some alleyways where the press doesn't work, and there will be goals. Didn't say they'd come from you, but there will be goals.
I think what she said is the interesting thing, and I don't know if they will try to transition out of it or if they will try like a Nagelsmann kind of transition where you're adding possession elements to it. It can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done. How do they handle that if they decide, okay, we're going to try to get some results early on. We're going to be pressing. We're going to try to get, smart players that fit our system, maybe not spending crazy money to do it. We're going to try to be competitive early on with that. And then when you get into the situation that Red Bulls, I think, never figured out with, all right, we can do this over a season and be good, but can we win a playoff game playing this way if the opponent says, no, here's the ball, you do something with it? You have to get to that point. I think Philly has a more balanced team, although I am waiting to see how it looks over a season without Jamiro Montero. So I think he was one of those guys who gave them some balance. Maybe Paxton Aronson can do that this year. We'll find out. Gazdag, maybe he can do that this year. You got to have a little bit of both, and how they transition will be the real question. But St. Louis, I think, does have that identity locked in very early on with what they want to do, what kind of players they want to get, and how they want to build. That's important.
They do, and it's good to have at least an idea there. You don't have to agree with the idea, but having something in place, it goes a long way. And hopefully they'll be able to kind of put that idea into reality efficiently. And that is going to be kind of the balancing act of making sure that, okay, we've got an idea, now we got to stick to it and see it through this season. And yeah, there's going to be some tough moments early on. It's tough moments for most teams. Expansion franchises aren't supposed to do what the Atlantas and LAFCs of the world did. That's just a reminder of that. It's not commonplace.
It should be more, I think, in this league, because just the way it's structured, they really give you a lot of opportunities to do that if it's done correctly. But it can be Cincinnati, it can be Minnesota, it can be Austin as well. And really the mistakes are more down to decisions made rather than, I think what we've seen in other sports where it's just really hard to be an expansion team and be competitive straight out of the gate, because it's almost like they put you behind the 8 ball. You go back to, man, how the Rockies and Marlins built back in the day. Florida was able to overcome that pretty quick. What, 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, and then they tore it all down and tried to go back.
That's different. That's a whole different thing. That's an ownership issue. Oh boy, but they won straight away. Not straight away. 4 years in, 97, right?
Yes,
97.
93.
Thanks again, Eric Greg.
Were they 93 or 92 coming into the league?
93, I believe.
Okay.
Charlie Huff was the opening day starter for them.
Yeah, I mean, and go back to the Jaguars and Panthers. They made championship games really early, and then it fell apart really fast because they weren't built for long-term success.
Las Vegas Knights almost won the Stanley Cup in year 1.
Yeah,
that one was really shocking. I think hockey, it's a little bit harder to do that. Is that correct, John?
And they structured the rules differently when Vegas was coming in for expansion and protection and things like that. And so it was easier for them to construct and be competitive in the first year.
With a global game like MLS, I think if you sign guys from outside quickly, then you can do well. If you sign the right guys from outside quickly, we'll see. I mean, you got to make the right decisions, and it's not easy because you're never going to hit on all of your signings. It's just when you're not signing a whole lot of people, as we've seen in Charlotte, that's even more of a problem. We'll see. Last one on the board for me ahead of Dylan joining us, Tony Juan Marti in Barcelona is reporting that Sergio Roberto, his contract renewal has stalled out with the club, and he is interested in joining the LA Galaxy, and they have made an offer. Tony Juan Marti is not one of the tabloid-esque guys. He's really good with what he does covering Barcelona. I think he's done stuff with ESPN, but he's also done stuff with Sport located in Barcelona. This feels very different than the Sergio Ramos conversation. That literally felt like, let's throw a dart at the wall and see who we're going to link Sergio Ramos with. This one's a little more feasible. If anything, Jared, I think it's at least decent guess that LA Galaxy are trying to add some pieces here before this window closes in early May.
Certainly feels like it. Maybe the Galaxy looking at this in a sense of, hey, this needs to be, if you're the Galaxy, like, this needs to be a year you're going for it, and if you've got an opportunity to get better, you're gonna try and take it, and man, go for it, I guess. Like, just, it does feel like an old school MLS move. Doesn't mean it can't work. It just feels like a move we would have seen 5 years ago.
I still think there is a place for veteran players coming in. I mean, Sergio Roberto is 30 too, so Sergio Ramos would feel like that kind of a move. I don't think Sergio Roberto feels like that kind of move. 30's okay. Arsenal reportedly linked with him, according to some tabloids out there. Bunch of teams have been linked if he doesn't sign with Barcelona for a new deal. But the LA Galaxy in the mix for a 30-year-old out of La Liga, I'm okay with that. I think that's a pretty good get if you can pull it off.
Yeah, and I mean, Sergio Ramos has only played 5 matches.
That's a August. Yeah, Sergio Ramos he's had so many injuries. I would have loved to have seen him in this league, even at the end of his career, if he could play. He's got so many injuries right now. He's not playing for PSG. It'd be kind of a waste to bring him in at this point because he's just not who he was. Mm-mm. So Sergio Roberto is a very different conversation, though. Completely different conversation. Jarrett, final comment, take, whatever from you before you leave us. And again, hopefully don't die and stuff.
Yeah, trying not to. Thank you.
Yeah, don't.
Enjoy the fact that Charlotte is pushing the envelope here. Hopefully someone comes in and makes an 80,000, makes it 80,000 one day. That's awesome. We keep pushing the envelope. We keep pushing things better. Everybody keeps pushing each other. And hopefully the product continues to improve. It's okay if you don't hold the record forever. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear about it.
That record's not that big of a deal. I don't think they're going to have any kind of a made-up trophy that will have to leave the training ground and go to Charlotte now. Maybe Charlotte makes their own trophy. I don't know. Maybe they put a banner up somewhere. Good for them.
That would not surprise me if they put a banner in the rafters at B of A.
Yes, it would surprise me. That would be.
You know what?
Ridiculous.
Get a restrictor plate off of, I don't know, find some obscure racer from the 90s and find a restrictor plate from a Talladega race and send it to Charlotte and be like, here you go.
And put it like an MLS logo on it and say, attendance record, like spray painted on. There you go.
You've taken the restrictor plate off MLS attendance. Here you go.
Yeah, just and stick a bunch of random stickers on it from 90s products that would have sponsored somebody's car, like a Terry Labonte. It's like send them the hood of a Terry Labonte car.
Amsoil sticker right there off the side. Sunoco.
Yes, it's got to be Sunoco, baby.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jarrett. I think.
You're welcome. You didn't know you were going to get into this, but
I didn't want to, but I did.
You're welcome.
Adios. Dylan Butler joining the show. How are you, Dylan?
Good. How you guys doing? I'm always intrigued by jumping in at the end of these conversations. What's happening there? It's.
You probably don't want to know. You really don't. It's been a wide-ranging conversation. There's been some questioning of what the crowd will look like in Charlotte tonight. I know they've announced they've sold over 70,000 tickets on Saturday against the Galaxy. I think my questions are more on what the on-field product looks like than what it is in the stands. I think it'll be a great night for the league, a great crowd. Charlotte, I think, was better than a 3-0 loss to DC. I think the game was closer than that, but I also think DC wasn't very good either. It wasn't a great match to begin with. Galaxy are a whole different level of competition, so this could get interesting Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, look, from a theatrical perspective, I think it'll be great, right? It'll be a great showcase for the league, right? 70,000 plus and the stands packed and you're interested. I mean, I'm interested in how that crowd will be and how it will sound like, the expansion teams, certainly I don't have to tell you guys, but Atlanta kind of raised that bar in terms of just the noise and the atmosphere and the sound. Right. I think Austin did a great job last year as well, despite, not having on-field success, for having an incredible home field feel, right? Like that game day atmosphere. So I'm intrigued to see what it'll be like for Charlotte, right? In this first one. But you're right. I don't, I think if that first one goes in and it's ruled a goal, maybe things are a little bit different for them on the day. But I mean, they are better than a 3-0 loss to a, mediocre DC team. So we'll see. Certainly not the worst performance of the week. I'm sure we'll touch on that. But
no,
yeah,
I don't think they get into the good, the bad, the ugly this week.
No.
We've got a lot of other contenders for that. We'll be negative to start. It's got to be Cincinnati with the ugly, right?
100%. Look, we were asked, right? John asked me last week about the wooden spoon, and listen, again, I think for me, it's in Cincinnati. It almost feels like to stay, right? I mean,
Cincinnati's to give away is what you're saying.
Oh, and again too, right? Austin was a team that wasn't great either, right? Last year. So
didn't we have them as the spork last week?
Yeah, I think so. You're right. So, it's not. I think as long as Cincinnati's doing Cincinnati things, Charlotte's like, all right, let's go. Go on, Cincinnati.
Take some of the heat off. The wooden spoon is stained by Skyline chili right now, so we'll see how long that stays on there. It looks like it might be another year. The bad from the weekend. What's in the bad category for you?
Colorado.
Yeah.
Right. Because they and I'm not even going to say it's a CCL hangover, right? Because they weren't in it long enough to have one. So
they didn't get to the bar in CCL to be hungover afterwards.
I mean, look, and Jason, man, spot on, because you kind of, you maybe saw some clouds there and wondered, right? Like, can they be this darling that they were a year ago? And I think anything that we say obviously is with the understanding it's a long season and things change, but their early start is not very good, right? I mean, crash out of the CCL to listen, Comunicaciones, so you give them credit, obviously, right? But it's not a Liga MX powerhouse, right, that you're losing to. So you should be beating the best team in Guatemala, in Honduras, and even Costa Rica, right? Like, so that's the level MLS is at right now. So that happens, and it happens at home, during a snowstorm, right? That should be advantage Colorado. So yes. They look poor in that, and then they followed up with just like a listless performance against LAFC. LAFC certainly, is going to be in the good category when we get to it, but just a bad performance. I mean, it's one thing to lose 3-0, but just to not even look like you care to be in the game is troublesome, right? Early on. And again, they've got money. They need a 9. We're shouting from the rooftops here, but they desperately need that splash of cash on a number 9 to push them forward. They really desperately need that forward.
There's got to be a move for them like that. I mean, look at what DC did with Michael Estrada, who got 2 goals. That would seem to be in the ballpark that is a reasonable expectation for Colorado to spend. It's a loan from Liga MX with, I think, a $5 million transfer option at the end. If Colorado can't do that, or they're not going to commit that, then we can't look at them as a contender, can we?
No. And we also, we were so high on them for getting the most out of like these bargain basement deals within MLS, right? But
yeah, they've done that.
They have, but then like Abubakar looked bad, right? That's of the bad of Colorado. That might have been the worst of it. Yeah. So that was a bad look for him in week 1. So for my bad, they're definitely right there. And it doesn't get any easier, for them, obviously, in week 2.
Would your choice be for bad be Vancouver, considering they weren't good on the road last year on the whole, but then they go into Columbus, and since Caleb Porter is good year, bad year, good year, bad year, good year, obviously this year this means Columbus is making the playoffs, and they put 4 on Vancouver in week 1.
I mean, you'd have to say yes because of the scoreline, but I skew more on the good of Columbus in that match. You know what I mean? Like, I think they were more impressive than Vancouver,
was not. Yeah.
Right. Correct. I mean, I think, they made a push for wingers and the need for that, especially with Pedro Santos playing at left back and the collective wingers, Miguel Barry. I think it's such it's so interesting, that dynamic. And you heard Caleb Porter speak about it after and just saying, and I feel like if it's anybody but Jossie, there might be an issue there, right? But he's such a team guy, and he's such a great guy that he's kind of willing to take this back seat. And he gives Miguel Barry the start off of his form at the end of last year, and certainly, paid dividends. And that midfield, right? Like that the old school trio, if you will, right? Of Artur and Nagbe and Zelarayan. I mean, that was the group that led them to the cup, and they look great in week 1 as well. So I think a lot of positives for Columbus in week 1. But, as Johnny mentioned, Vancouver on the road. Well, that was also Columbus on the road last year too, right? So now they've got to go, granted, to probably another bad in San Jose, but, they've got to go on the road and get some points there as well. But I think it was a good performance from Columbus, as you said, looking for a bounce back year. I think they might be that team, because they were below the table last year, that maybe teams are not, or people are not really thinking as like a major contender in the East, but I think they can surprise some people this year.
Yeah, I don't have them in my like cup contender category yet, but if they continue to play like this and they get goals from their wingers and they got goals from Luis Diaz and from Derek Etienne, if they're able to do that and ride the hot hand of Barry and then Zardes and maybe go back and forth, yeah, Columbus has the pieces to do it. Artur was maybe the biggest surprise because there were issues with him early on in preseason. People were thinking that I think it's a hip injury was going to be long-term and we weren't going to see him a whole lot. And he has bounced back into form pretty quick.
Yeah. And that's, he's that, everybody knows what you're getting from Zelarayan and everyone knows who Nagbe is. Right. And I think Artur is that key of that trio, when he's on, now you've got the three of them working in cohesion. I think it's, it's one of the better central midfield groupings that MLS has when they're all on.
I'll go with another good, and it's kind of related to Columbus. It's kind of related to Atlanta and probably quite a few other teams. I think maybe this is the first year that I really remember at this point position battles. Barry with the hot start or hot finish from last year, he gets the start over Jossie Zardes. Ronald Hernandez here in Atlanta at right back has had the opportunity in preseason to earn the starting spots. Brooks Lennon is back into training, but Hernandez kept his starting role this week. Other teams have that. It's not maybe like it was a few years ago where it felt like you had a starting 11, maybe one or two other contenders for it, and then a huge drop-off. The level of competition within teams for playing time, that's improved a lot. I think it's going to push the league forward in a big way.
And I think that's a low key sort of, response, if you will, or the benefit of all these different initiatives like the U22 initiative and everything like so. We know that their teams are getting better players, but now you're seeing it, at training, and you're seeing it, as you mentioned, right, competing for spots. And I think that's critical because you look at like a SKC, right, these last couple of years where Vermees just, whether he hasn't felt he could or just didn't, or he's stubborn to not do it, but he didn't really rotate. Right. And you can see now sort of the issue there in terms of, injuries or just not having that form at the end of the year. So squad rotation is going to be huge every year, but especially with more competitions coming in and US Open Cup coming. So yeah, I mean, it's not just a rotation of for an early US Open Cup match, right? Like it's important to have guys every day competing for these spots, and it just pushes the level throughout the squad, no doubt.
What did you think of the last match of the weekend, Seattle and Nashville? I know a lot of folks, us included, think that they're the top two in the West, both MLS Cup contenders. And I mean, I watched a great deal of it. It seemed sloppy at times, especially from Seattle, with a lot of giveaways that created chances for Nashville, and eventually the Godoy goal that was the eventual game winner. What did you think of those two coming out of the blocks?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun way to end it. It's funny when Jason was mentioning position battles early on. I thought you were going with teams already, right? Because that felt like, hey, this is a big one early on, especially with Nashville's move to the West, right? And Seattle sort of being that perennial team up there, and I think, certainly with a win at Lumen Field, they've kind of announced their intention of being, one of the better teams in the West. And I think that really will set things up to be a lot of fun in the West. Nashville did Nashville things that we expected. I thought Sean Davis was great as well, right? On his debut for them, did things that maybe it will be more appreciated in Nashville than perhaps we're here in New York. And then, and I thought it was interesting too, in that, like, I wondered sort of how that midfield would look, right? Like, who would be the odd man out? And actually, none of them were, right?
Yeah.
Like, at least on this day, it wasn't, where Dax and Godoy and Davis were all in that midfield together. So thought that was interesting for Nashville as well. Yes, definitely, I thought it'd be a better performance from Seattle, especially at home in the opener. Obviously, yes, CCL as well for them, but again, definitely impressed with Nashville early on. I mean, that's when you talk cup contenders. And Jason, you mentioned, Columbus not being in that tier. I think you've got to put Nashville
is
in that tier.
100%. I was really intrigued to see what their lineup would be. And they come out. I mean, I'd be curious to see what Gary Smith calls it. I'd probably call it a 4-2 or 4-3-2-1. It's 3 holding midfielders with Davis, with McCarty, with Godoy. They kind of split the field into thirds a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Miller and Lovitz, the outside backs, can get forward a good bit, especially Lovitz. So you got to cover for him a bit. But then Leal and Mukhtar are in pretty free roles under CJ Sapong. And we talk about position battles. Nashville paid a lot of money to bring in Ake Loba, and CJ Sapong just keeps Loba on the bench consistently.
Yeah, it's funny, right? We saw that with Rios as well, right? Like where just because you spend the money, it doesn't mean that you've earned your starting 11 spot, right? So
I do think that's a really good pickup for Charlotte. I've liked Daniel Rios a lot and felt like he needed an opportunity. Before Sapong kind of grabbed the starting role, I felt like Rios deserved a look. Charlotte will get somebody who can score goals for them with Rios. That's a good pickup for Charlotte.
And then my other question with them was sort of, how they would look without a Johnston, right? Like, I thought he was awesome last year for Nashville. I was, one of the more surprising moves, that along with Ilya going, leaving SKC. I thought that was a bad move on their part. Davis leaving Red Bulls, all those moves I was surprised at. But yeah, look, Nashville, they responded and they found the way, to get a pretty resounding victory.
Portland and New England, it was a 2-2 draw. And when you look at this one, I know that at the beginning of the season, we're looking at Portland as one of those probably second-tier teams, probably fighting for a playoff spot because of the advancing age of some and the advancing rosters of others, and New England going west. And it was
we thought that last year as well.
I know. Like I said, mark the tape right now. And I will always say, never doubt Giovanni Severesi in a playoff format. As long as you get him in, then he'll find ways to get as deep as he can. But Portland and New England, a 2-2 draw out of the blocks.
Yeah, again, I think you put that one on Big Boy Fox, and it was a lot of entertainment. Right. Great spectacle, I thought, for the league. A couple takeaways from that one was, I was intrigued and I put a piece yesterday on MLSsoccer.com about, like the big signings and sort of, maybe who made some of the biggest noise in week one, right? Like first impressions for a new club. And I thought Leggett certainly did that. Right.
What a goal from Leggett.
Yeah. And I think, and how he would be utilized, I was interested in too, right? Like, would he be out on the wing more? Would he, have a free flowing role for Bruce? So that was one of the questions and one of the things I was intrigued with coming in. So yeah, terrific goal for him, an emotional one. It certainly looked like, right, as well for him. We got to see Josie back on the field, and even how about this breaking news? Josie defending, right? Like we saw him deep in his box, right? Like at least trying to defend.
Hey, look, we saw Dom Dwyer defending too here in Atlanta. So crazy things happened around MLS this weekend.
And then obviously, look, Yemi Chara does the magnificent, right? Like, I know a lot of fans kind of stuffed the ballot box, but that's the goal of the week, right? I mean, it's got to be for Chara getting on the bike. And again, right, high entertainment, I think, on a Saturday night in Big Boy Fox in the rain in Portland. So,
yeah, those are the kinds of spectacles that we need when we get these games, and I hope that you get that with Charlotte and the Galaxy. The spectacle might be coming from the other side. I think in the good category for the weekend, the LA Galaxy finding a win, and Chicharito with a clutch goal late.
Yeah, listen. And I feel like we kind of, we flash back to last year and how he started, right? And like, then the questions about, what does this mean? Vanny, new coach, Chicharito after the injury. And I think it's important for him to continue from last year's form and run that he had, right? So terrific goal from him. I thought that was a good game too, right? I mean, obviously NYCFC off the championship, off of securing passage into the quarterfinals, staying out in LA. I was even saying, like, this is completely not even talking tactically and on the field, but like, if you're an NYCFC fan, like, how great of a road trip could that have been, right?
Yeah.
Like, dude, you go out to you go. What do they play Wednesday at LAFC?
Yeah.
You go out. You get a house with a few boys, right? A few of you.
And
boys.
it's an afternoon game.
Oh.
For the CONCACAF Champions League match, and you're gassed up. It's like, all right, match is over at 5. We're going out for dinner. It's a good night, and that's just the beginning of the week.
And then it's right through into Sunday, right? Like, what a great week that was. They might have the opposite coming up because they have to go to the Hartford, I guess, for the for the Champions League there. But that's a whole nother story. But and I thought, I think. I love the post game interview with Chicha, right? Like, it's so entertaining. I think he's so honest. It's also refreshing to see a major star and everything that he's done in his career. Just be so kind of thankful, right? Like, he was praising NYCFC and he was saying it wasn't about him and it was about his team and it was more about the win. And that's not player speak, right? You could tell that's from his heart. And I think that's always, we saw an emotional interview with him last year around this time, right? Where he talked about his grandfather and the importance of mental health. And it was so cool to see. I thought Jillian did a great job with that as well. That was another sort of one of my takeaways from that one, just, his post game.
Abby says the ladies would have enjoyed the trip to LA as well.
100%. Yeah, no, fair. I'm just,
Dylan was flashing back to what he would have liked to have done if he had been one of those supporters.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I've done those trips before. They're fun. We'll leave it at that. What else stood out to you from the weekend? I mean, Orlando with a good win over Montreal. You had a couple of scoreless draws, but in at least one of them, Gonzalo Higuain was spraying passes around, creating chances more than anybody else on the weekend with 7 key passes. Dallas and Toronto, I think that's a good point for Toronto, and they're 1-1. I was impressed with how their wingers converted into outside backs because they don't have any outside backs, grew into the game. Marshall Ruti and Schaffelberg, 2 players that I like going forward. I think they got better after giving up a bad goal and getting a point out of that. There were some decent points on the road from some teams.
Yeah. My other biggest kind of major takeaway, I guess, is, we mentioned Colorado in the bad, but you've got to put LAFC in the good, right? So,
yeah.
I think, again, we wondered, right? New coach, new situation, and as great it is to have Chicha on the one side score his goal, to have Vela score a hat trick, all different ways too. One from the spot, one from a ball over the top. That again he beats Abubakar on, and then that classic Vela goal, right out on the right, and he cuts it to his left and just knocks it into the far post. That's a great sign as well. I think when both LA clubs are going and humming, it's a lot of fun, right? Because you really look forward to that derby match that I won't mention the name of because I know Jason doesn't love it.
Thank you. El Trafico.
But both struggled last year, so even that game is always fun, obviously. But if they can both be at a high level,
right,
especially those 2 guys, we haven't seen them on the field yet, right? That's been one of the stories that MLS has been dying to tell or show, and it hasn't been the case because of injuries. So I thought he was great, but Crepeau making his debut really didn't have a lot to do. But again, Ilie, right, was fantastic, and Shrundalo was so effusive in his praise, and again, it boggles my mind that a guy like that, and what he does, you would think he'd be so valued in SKC. And we weren't behind the door. We don't know what the negotiations were like, but that's a huge loss for SKC to me, and a massive gain for LAFC. And also, that was another question we had, right? How does he and Kellen Acosta, who works the 6 and the 8, right? And I think that, we kind of saw that in that first match as well.
I'm really curious to see what Ilie's salary number ends up being, because if it's not crazy high, You have to question Kansas City for letting Ilie walk and replacing him with somebody they had before Ilie and Urde Rosell, who I like and I thought was miscast in Orlando. He didn't fit the style of play, didn't get a ton of time there. I think Rosell is still a good player, but he's not Ilie.
I was going to say, if it's a like for like, I'm going Ilie every day of the week for that one.
Yeah, and look, I'm not sure how much of Atlanta and Kansas City you had a chance to see. It was a kind of a wild day at the Benz because you get the early goal, then you have the hamstring injury with Araújo, so that's a little bit of concern. See how long he's going to be out. Get Dom Dwyer coming in. You have no idea what that's going to turn into, and he gets a great goal, one of the goals of the weekend. And then the 17-year-old Wiley puts it away after conceding on a set piece. A little bit of a roller coaster at times.
So Dwyer's already, I guess, proved me a little bit wrong, right? Like where I still do think he'll have more yellow cards than goals.
Hey, if it's 4 yellows and 3 goals, I'm fine. If it's 6 yellows and 5 goals, I'm fine. That's cool.
But yeah, no, we're still looking for, obviously, Amada. We want to see him and get him on the field.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, you guys are closer to that than I am. It's obviously those things are. It's almost like a hamstring injury. You just don't know, right? Like with the visa process and the immigration and everything like that. So, and then I was, the matches that I handled. I was telling Jason offline was the LAFC match, and then super fortunate, like the game of the weekend, right? Houston, RSL. I mean, whoa, what match!
I started watching other leagues at that point.
I started watching that one, and then it was like, oh, Seattle and Nashville.
I will say though, Steve Clark was impressive for Houston, and I think again one of those, maybe Portland, you felt you had a luxury there a little bit with a couple keepers, but that was a desperate need for Houston, so they addressed that. Darwin almost does Darwin things, and he cracks the ball off the post, but other than maybe those two takeaways. Not a lot to come from that. The big name, or not the big name, but the big money signings for both teams kind of lacked there. Where Houston's, he didn't get a touch in the box all match, and Salt Lake's, came off the bench late. So not a lot to be had from that one, other than those two maybe small points.
So. Just a quick hockey question for you, since you're hockey guys here on the show. Do you think that they'll play Brass Bonanza when NYCFC scores it in Hartford?
I thought they did.
I think they did before, because
right?
I think I remember.
No, Toronto did.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
It was when Toronto was playing there in 20.
I think NYCFC is too buttoned up to like embrace that whole thing. I think they'll play their stuff that they do after goals. But look, I completely, I was with them for that first match. Understanding to play it out in the bank, right? Like, again, it's a lower kind of level Costa Rican side. It doesn't matter kind of where you play that match, you should get through. This is concerning going forward. But my question is, what is it about, all jokes aside, right? What is it about Yankee Stadium and Citi Field that can't get CONCACAF approval, right? Because you can't tell me it's the width of the field, because in a different competition, in a more technically important competition, a World Cup qualifier, right? Canada, US at Tim Hortons Field, that field was more narrow. You heard Greg Berhalter say it, right? So,
but it's also not the only baseball field that CONCACAF waved their finger at and said no, right?
But I don't get it. Like, so it's not. What is the mound? Like, is it?
Yeah, it's not on the pitch. So is it?
Certainly off it, you have all the amenities that you'd want, right?
Yeah,
rooms and everything else that you need. Press box accommodations are fine. So that's why it boggles my mind, right? Like, even you go back to Mexico and Canada in Edmonton, that pitch was horrible, right? Like, so what is it that they're kind of saying no to? It's very curious to me.
I would like to hear an explanation. Yeah, that would be good, because if it's the width, then they're questioning what NYC says the width is. And look, now that's come up over the years, but you've allowed some pretty narrow pitches as well.
That's what I'm saying. I think, and look,
Berhalter
doesn't have, he's not defending NYCFC, right?
Right, exactly.
He doesn't have anything to gain from that. So when he says the pitch at Tim Hortons Field was more narrow than Yankee Stadium, and he pointed out exactly, how wide it was, I tend to believe him. So just again, curious there as to why, right? Like this is a team that I think can make a serious run in this competition. And it would just be nice to have them have home field advantage at some point. So
yeah, it's something that maybe more questions have to be answered on this one, because I'm a little curious about it. Let's look ahead to week 2 in MLS really quick. Not really a one high profile match that grabs my attention. I guess the game of the weekend might end up being the last one of the weekend on Sunday night. LAFC hosting Portland at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, again, I think high entertainment value, right, is one of the reasons you do that. Certainly, look, you both teams like to score. They've had fun games in the past when it was Bradley and Savarese, and the contrast a little bit in styles. Mm-hmm. So that one should be fun. I think there's a few different, not necessarily like the highest profile, but just sort of how our team's rebounding from week 1 or continuing on, right, from week 1. So yeah. I think that's the intrigue for me in week 2.
Yeah, San Jose Columbus might be one of the weirder ones that it could end up being a very entertaining game. Minnesota, Nashville, I think questions for Minnesota. Can they build off of a good draw on the road at Philly? And Nashville, can they continue doing what they do? But a lot of eyes are going to be on Charlotte and the LA Galaxy, and just a huge spectacle for the league. I think that's going to get the headlines, and that's a good thing. I hope the game can live up to it and is competitive.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, let's be honest. We could probably see 5-1 LA, and we don't want to see
shock
that.
me. Yeah, something like that would not shock me, but we don't want that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm looking at, you're looking at a couple of matchups in here. Now, okay, here's one that I'm looking at, and I'm confused early on. It's the one before LA and Portland on Sunday. Austin is a home favorite, and a big home favorite right now at a -156 against Inter Miami, considering what we saw from Inter Miami. I guess this is recency bias when it comes to Austin right now?
Yeah, listen, I don't I feel like betting on MLS is
do what I do, but do the opposite. It's like say what I say and do the opposite. Run the other way.
Dangerous. You can have it all lined up and study and have a good feel on these teams, and then something crazy happens.
Yeah, listen, this of all leagues, right? Like the unpredictable, the unexpected. So yeah, I don't. Nothing surprises me, and would a 3-0 Miami surprise me? No, right? Like would Austin, continuing on and doing what no. So I stay away from that. I probably should play MLS fantasy. I just don't have the time. But
you got a league.
Yeah, and I got invited to one too with MLS editorial. I just I don't have the bandwidth. I can't.
It's hectic. It's hectic right now. We got games popping up all over the place. USL Championship about to start. Next Pro going to get started here at the end of March. So very busy time. What do you have coming up this week?
League, all kinds of stuff, right?
Well, yeah, and then you've got a bunch of stuff coming up this week that is not MLS related. You're very busy on the mic this week.
Oh man, yeah, I got some high school basketball broadcasts coming up now. Real quick, getting ready for a basketball game obviously is a lot easier than a soccer game or a lacrosse game or a football game because you've got less players. But I still have like 8 games I'm doing between Thursday and Sunday. I've got 3 on Thursday, 2 on Friday, 3 on Sunday. So it's busy times.
Don't think about the second one till that first one's over, brother.
We've got a lacrosse. I've got a high school lacrosse show that we're doing live from a place out on the island next Tuesday night. So worlds colliding. It's a busy time.
Well, buckle up, rest that voice, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, boys.
Be good. Thanks, Dylan.
See ya.
Make sure you're following him, Dylan _Butler on social media. for all of your lacrosse and high school basketball and MLS conversation and takes. We got lots of things to get into in hour number 2, but first, John's going to tell us about our friends at Eliminize.
We'll do that, certainly. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place that you need to go. It's Eliminize Service. QR code over my left shoulder. For those of you watching on Twitch. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Eliminize has created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use the Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process, makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers, kind of the environment, a very green way to go about things without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever, getting rid of the odors that are there. Different than our favorite masking agents that we have under the sink, either in the bathroom or in the kitchen, where it attacks the issues. It doesn't just mask the odors themselves. It's a proven scientific formula that destroys odors down to the molecule. Pricing, very, very easy. One of two ways, by cubic foot or by parts per million, to make it affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, go to their website, eliminize.com. But do us a favor here at SDH, go /Atlanta after eliminize.com so they know what part of the world that you are contacting them from. ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta. Eliminize Service. Proud sponsors of everything SDH. Eliminize Service for everything. Odor-free, clean, fresh air.
Nicely done.
Got it under 220, I guess.
Well, yeah, I would hope so. No, you were pretty good on timing that time around.
Okay.
Coming up tomorrow on the network, you will be able to hear John, and he'll be joined by Jessica Charman for the girls' match with Whitewater and Pike County. Boys' match, John will be solo, 2 undefeated teams in the state on the boys' side. Jess has got other responsibilities, like a big game in front of 70,000 people in Charlotte on the weekend. But she'll be on the network tomorrow for the game at 6:00, Whitewater and Pike County in Fayetteville. And then I will be on the Atlanta United 2 stream that we are working to put together. Fingers crossed. Should be good for Atlanta United 2 and the Chattanooga Red Wolves on Twitch, twitch.tv/ATLUTD for a preseason friendly there. So lots of stuff. We'll get into your questions and such in the second part of hour number 2, but some other news if you have not seen it over the last 24 hours or so. I think everybody saw that Russian football clubs and national teams have been suspended from all competitions by FIFA and UEFA after the invasion of Ukraine. Banned until further notice is the quote. Not going to play right now as things stand in World Cup playoff matches this month, at the end of the month. Not going to play. The women's team is not going to play in the Euros this summer. Spartak Moscow been kicked out of the Europa League. They will not participate in the round of 16. RB Leipzig will move on to the quarterfinals. UEFA's also ended its sponsorship with Gazprom. Shakhtar Donetsk have evacuated their Brazilian players to Romania following the invasion. The club worked with UEFA to move 12 players away from the conflict. Dynamo Kiev and Dnipro 1 have also managed to move foreign players from Ukraine. UEFA President Alexander Seferin, the Ukrainian Football Association President Andrei Pavelko, and the Moldovan Football Federation President Leonid Olinichenko are the ones who really helped make this happen. So some players have been evacuated. I know some of the American players who were playing basketball in Ukraine were removed from the country pretty early on. Other stuff worldwide, when it comes getting to these World Cup qualifiers coming up in March, in Asia, the UAE is going to be the neutral venue for games involving China and Syria. China have had a bunch of qualifiers moved to different places because of quarantine restrictions imposed by Chinese authorities because of the coronavirus pandemic. Syria, it was announced in December that they would play their World Cup qualifiers at neutral venues. China is going to play Saudi Arabia in Group B on March 24th. Syria will play Iraq in Group A on March 29th. China and Syria are not going to move on to the playoff round in Asia. Saudi Arabia will probably, I think they're qualified. So they're either qualified or they're about to. So these games aren't exactly consequential, but they're not going to be played in China and Syria at this point. Rumors. Ralph Rangnick, Cristiano Ronaldo. Man, this stupid saga is going to continue and continue and continue and continue. Sources say Rangnick's patience is wearing thin with Ronaldo. Ronaldo reportedly wanting to leave, according to other sources. Whatever. Just wake me up when we get to the end of the season. It's so absurd at this stage of, we don't like Ralph Rangnick. We don't like his coaching. He doesn't like these players. Yeah. Anyway, I want the season to end because it's just annoying. According to Star, Manchester United are not going to pay £100 million to sign Victor Osimhen from Napoli. That's a little high. I like Osimhen a lot, but that's not crazy. That's just a little high. We'll see if that number comes down some. Jonathan David, Canadian national team player, Lille forward, Arsenal target, determined to leave Lille this summer. Arsenal, according to Sky Germany and Express, are going to try to get a deal done to bring Jonathan David to London. Jordi Cruyff is the sporting advisor at Barcelona. Ajax want to hire him as their new director of football after the Mark Overmars saga, stupidity, what have you. Makes a ton of sense. I mean, Cruyff, Ajax, duh. We'll see if they can pull that one off. Speaking of Barcelona, according to Sport in Barcelona, the club has almost completed the free signing of Franck Kessie from Milan. Milan was trying to get him back. He's been linked with a bunch of other clubs. According to Sport, Barcelona have almost got it done. He's out of contract in the summer. Mateo Moreto tweets out that Kessie has had offers with more money than from other clubs. Barcelona and Xavi have really convinced him. Xavi personally called him to convince him to come to Barcelona. Considering it, loves the city, convinced by Xavi and the project that he's building out. So Franck Kessie might take less money to go to Barcelona on a free this summer, and that'd be a huge, huge signing for Barcelona. Germany, Borussia Dortmund, more saga, more drama, more craziness. Jude Bellingham is not making friends. He made a bunch of headlines from the weekend or from the midweek last week against Rangers, 2-2 draw, where he was caught on camera yelling at Nico Schulz, his teammate, telling his teammate, quote, that he's, quote, blanking blank and can't get one blanking pass off. Yeah, that's good. Halftime of their game on Sunday, he got into a verbal altercation with a teammate. Axel Witsel wanted to talk to him and talk about how to press in the most ideal way. Bellingham just waved him away disrespectfully. Sport 1 in Germany now says that Bellingham is splitting the Dortmund dressing room with his attitude. He's, quote, getting on the nerves, unquote, of some of the more experienced players. Marco Rosa defended him, said where Jude comes from, you possibly speak a bit more rough in English. That's part of it. Jude wants to win games. He's angry, and that's part of him as a player and something that we actually need even more. Yeah, there's a line, though. We'll see if Bellingham keeps going over that line, as it sounds like he has been. Tomorrow, Dusan Vlahovic makes his return to Fiorentina in Coppa Italia with Juventus. There's a lot of concern about what this could look like. If you remember when Vlahovic was signed to Juventus, we talked about how Fiorentina and Juve are a much bigger rivalry than people might think. Players leaving Fiorentina and going to Juventus, not very warmly received. Fiorentina have had to release an official statement asking their fans to avoid racist chants towards Dusan Vlahovic ahead of the game. Fans unveiled threatening banners outside the stadium before his transfer to Juve. Police had to patrol his house in Florence during his last days in town at the end of January. Yeah, Max Allegri said it's a game of football tomorrow. I believe in the intelligence and culture of Fiorentina fans. Vlahovic will forever be grateful to Florentines and Fiorentina, the club that allowed him to move to Juventus. That's all well and good, but I got a bad feeling about this one. Yeah. They're playing in Florence on the last day of the regular season as well, but Coppa Italia is going to push this thing up, and we will see how this goes tomorrow. I'm not expecting there to be no incidents here, sadly. Everton, they now know what it's like to be dealing with referees in ways like, I don't know, maybe Atlanta United has over the last couple of years. They received an apology from the head of the professional referees body, Mike Riley, after they were denied a penalty in the 1-0 defeat by Manchester City. They wrote to complain about the decision. Paul Tierney, the referee, VAR Chris Kavanaugh said it was not penalty worthy. Riley, who is the PGMOL, the equivalent of pro in England, the Professional Game Match Officials Limited, called both Lampard and Everton chairman Bill Kenwright on Monday to apologize for the incident, which, the apology doesn't help you stay out of the relegation spots. Everton are 17th in the table, 1 place, 1 point ahead of Burnley. Burnley hosts Leicester today at 2:45 Eastern Time. Kavanaugh will be the referee for that match. Lampard, after the game, said, "We've lost a point because of a professional who cannot do his job right. It is so incompetent to get it wrong." He's not wrong.
Not wrong at all. There's the photo. There's a still photo. I know for those that haven't seen the video, there's a still of...
Yeah, stills can be very misleading.
Right. There's a still of Rodri, and his arm is out like that.
In this case, that's probably a good still, but stills can be misleading on stuff.
Yes. In this particular case, there is a still that is square to Rodri, and his arm is out like this, and the ball is basically forearm elbow length as opposed to...
Should have been a penalty.
Yeah.
Should have been a penalty. The apology does nothing except say that we got it wrong. And I guess that's a step in the right direction. I don't know how often that happens in England, but it has happened here, and it's not going to help Everton trying to stay up. We'll see where that goes. Chelsea are, according to the CIES Football Observatory, the most profitable football academy in the Premier League. They've generated £175 million from player sales in recent years. I'm not sure if all of that's from the academy or not. I'm not sure the tracking here, but they have developed a lot. We talked about this with Chelsea and what they've done. Yes, they spend a lot of money, obviously, but they have developed it. Right now, it's not exactly easy for Chelsea and their manager, Thomas Tuchel, and their players in dealing with the crossover of everything going on with Russia and Ukraine. Roman Abramovich, who was reportedly, and I haven't seen anything to go against this, requested by Ukraine to get involved in trying to end the conflict because of his relationship with Vladimir Putin. And I believe he has tried to do something. At least that's been said. It could be PR, but whatever. It's a shame that now you're getting questions. I get it. I understand it, but it's a shame for Thomas Tuchel, who has nothing to do with that. It's a shame for players that they're going to be questioned about where their owner is from and who he is friends with and what he has done and what he hasn't done. And Tuchel got a little frustrated with it, I think, in questions ahead of their next match. I get it, but it is going to happen. It is inevitable. And I don't know how they handle it well. It's not Thomas Tuchel's fight. I think the hard part about it is, it's not his fault or fight or anything, but he's going to get questioned about it, and it's not going to be easy for him to handle.
When Thomas Tuchel's focus is what's going on the pitch, he has a job to do, and he's trying to get Chelsea in international football and chasing as many points as humanly possible. But because of where he is in this position of power, everything that's associated with what's going on, everything with Roman Abramovich and the trust and what have you, all those questions are going to bleed over into the soccer questions and the day-to-day. And I imagine that, that the longer we have what's going on currently between Russia and Ukraine, those questions will continue to ramp up. The pressure will continue to be there, and it will be interesting to see how Thomas Tuchel handles it. But I understand his level of frustration because he has no immediate impact on what's going on outside the arc of the club. But, you're in that position of power, and folks are going to take that presser, naturally going to gravitate toward any kind of press opportunity to ask those questions. It's a natural part of all of this. But, yeah, I mean, he's going to answer questions. He got frustrated with it. And there will be more questions. He may get more frustrated with it, but that's just where things stand right now.
Yeah, I don't blame him for being frustrated with it. Thomas Tuchel. I have no problem with Thomas Tuchel being frustrated about it when, you can say that that's just how it is and they have to ask the question. Whatever. I don't think that necessarily should be how it is to ask the football manager about it, who has nothing to do with that. But okay, if that's how it is, then they also have to accept the answer from the football manager who has nothing to do with it when he says, hey, this is beyond me, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You can't keep going at him. And that's where I think he got frustrated in questions today. It's a bad spot for Tuchel to be in and have to deal with it. It's all of it is absolutely crazy. Sheriff's manager, if you haven't seen this, from Moldova, who beat Real Madrid this past season. He is Ukrainian. He has joined the army. He is not with Sheriff right now. He is in the army. It's just, it's awful. It's awful. And I hate it for the people like Tuchel who are in this situation. I mean, obviously I hate it for other people more. Don't try to misconstrue what I'm saying, but I hate it in this situation from a football perspective that Tuchel is there to talk about a match tomorrow that is his job, and he's going to be pressed for answers about something that he can't answer. I mean, it's chaos. Other stuff on the board before we get into questions, and you guys can take questions wherever you want. We'll answer as many as we can before we wrap up. Atlético Nacional in Colombia chasing Hernan Crespo to be their new manager, according to Germán García Grova in Argentina. Crespo has been linked to like every club in this hemisphere. We'll see which one hires him. One he has been linked to but has not made a change yet is Club América. They got a draw over the weekend. I guess that was enough for Santiago Solari to keep his job. 1 win in their last 12. It is the worst start to a season. 1 win, 2 draws, 4 losses. Worst start since 1957 for Club América. Yeah. Next loss and Solari's gone, I would imagine. Monterrey over the weekend let Javier Aguirre go. Lost to Atlético San Luis 2-0. 5 points from 5 matches. That's not okay. And they were not good at the Club World Cup either. They lost their first game. So, yeah, Aguirre, after winning CONCACAF Champions League last year, that patience wore very thin. He is out. Liga MX also announced last week that the promotion possibilities are coming back for the Liga de Expansión. You'll remember Celaya. You'll remember Tepatitlan that Atlanta United just saw in preseason. Could happen as soon as the Apertura in 2023. The process was frozen in 2020, somewhat due to the pandemic, more than anything due to the fact that you've had a lot of second division teams who are not first division worthy, and they've sold the rights rather than move up, or they can't move up because they don't meet the standards. So they sell the rights that they earned, and it just kind of defeated the whole process. It needed restructuring. Part of the restructuring is that clubs in the second division will have to be certified. So they got to meet certain standards in infrastructure, in their economic fitness and health, the internal structure of the club. If they meet the standard, if a certain number meet the standard, then promotion can happen for Apertura 2023. The clubs that would then win the Liga de Expansión, they have to be ones that meet the standard to actually get the promotion. There's nothing about relegation yet. There's 18 teams in the top flight in Liga MX. There's been some talk about, I think, a reconstitution of Veracruz that disappeared a little while ago. They could come back into Liga MX and not have to go through Liga de Expansión. I think they'll probably try to get to 20 is a little bit of my guess here. And then we'll see. But there's still work to do. There's still work to do for the second division in Mexico to get back to what it used to be. It's fallen off in a big way. There's very few clubs that have the infrastructure to be able to move up right now. Hopefully this will move up. We'll see. All right. Last one, Honduras. Diego Vasquez, somebody that we talked about a couple years ago when Atlanta United faced Motagua. Still there. Been there since 2013. Finished his career with Motagua as a goalkeeper. When he arrived in 2013 as a manager, won 5 titles, got to a CONCACAF League final, one of the longest tenures in Central America. after their 5-0 loss to Seattle in CONCACAF Champions League, they announced that that's it for Vasquez. But because he'd been there for so long, they gave him one more game in the league on Sunday. Team responded. They beat Platense. Vasquez was sent off with a win. Players celebrated with him after the second goal. You could see him very emotional on the touchline. One of the best managers in this region, and Vasquez will be an interesting one to see where he ends up. I don't know, maybe in charge of the Honduran national team after this fracaso of a World Cup qualifying campaign. Maybe Vasquez gets that kind of a call. Be curious. But a great run from Mcdonough. It was probably time. It's been a long time. Maybe they need fresh ideas, but very cool if you get a chance to see the video of the team sending him off the right way. You don't always get to write your final chapter with a club. A lot of times the bosses ahead of you do that for you. And they kind of did here, but they did give the team the right way to send him off, the fans the right way to send him off. Ends with a win. That's much better than ending with a 5-0 loss in Seattle. So good stuff. Vasquez is available now out of Honduras. That's what I have on the news front. Anything you have, John, that we need to hit before we get into questions?
A couple of other things. I mean, you'd mentioned, and it's news of the day material. You had mentioned what's been going on with Russia and Ukraine. Looks like the idea of, and these are both from the Times in London, Roman Abramovich's move to pass control of Chelsea to the charitable foundation has been put on hold. The trustees are now taking legal advice on whether or not that's even a possibility. Times understands at least one trustee fears they may have to resign amid concerns about a conflict of interest. And remember, there are 6 individuals on this trust. And the Charity Commission confirmed that they have contacted Chelsea's foundation for more information. So that idea that Roman Abramovich had last week isn't quite to fruition yet. And the other one comes from Everton and Alisher Usmanov, who is the Russian billionaire with commercial ties to Everton, sponsors the training ground and a £30 million exclusive naming rights option. He has had his assets frozen by the European Union as a part of sanctions against Russia and Ukraine. His mobile phone operator sponsors Everton's women's club. He has what is referred to as close ties, and that's the in quotation marks from the Times, to Russian President Vladimir Putin, is a friend and associate of Farhad Moshiri, who is the owner of Everton. No idea really right now what impact the sanctions on Usmanov will have on Everton, but right now Usmanov is had his assets frozen by the EU. So a couple of things to keep an eye on there in the Premier League.
Yeah, there's going to be some complications. We're hearing most about it in England, but there's going to be complications with some of the Russian ownership of clubs and what happens next, as that's gotten very complicated. Everton could be in a really, really difficult spot. Really, really difficult spot. I mean, on the field, they're in a difficult spot, yes. But off the field, they could be in an even more difficult spot. Let's get into questions on the Twitch pitch. You got them. We'll jump into them before we wrap up. Last thing I saw this morning, Charlotte training at Bank of America Stadium, and Karol Swiderski, their Polish forward, is back there now. He had paperwork issues, had to go back to Europe, got it resolved. So he is training. He should be in the team for Saturday. That's a big help. Still have questions about what level he's going to be at in this league. But good to get a real number 9 there. Titi Ortiz did as good of a job as he can, but he's not a 9. Jordi Reyna was playing on the wing. I think they'll look better with a 9, but there were questions about him in the Carolina Challenge Cup and what level he's going to be at. So, all right, we'll get into as many questions as we can. Ricky, yeah, I mean, this has been going on for a while at Celtic. I don't have all the information, and it's pretty sensitive conversation. The club could get sued by former, I think they had Celtic Boys Club. I don't think it was Academy exactly, but there have been allegations of abuse from a long time ago, and now the club can be sued. That was the news today about it, and that could be a massive issue for the club, obviously, if they are liable here. So That one it's a much bigger story than just what came out today. But yeah, they are facing legal actions and some pretty big ones. So we'll have to see where that goes. It could, yeah. I mean, I don't know all the details. Ricky says it feels very Penn State. I don't have enough details there to say what it's like, but the fact that the club it can be held liable, that's not good. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. So more questions, more comments. Let me scroll back and see if I missed any that I could have gotten. And you guys who are out there listening on the podcast edition later on, if you have questions, you can tweet them at us. We will add them into the mix for the next day. You can send us an email. Please feel like when we get into these kind of segments of questions, I know like it's kind of for the live audience on Twitch, but if you have questions after the fact and you want us to bring them up next time we jump into questions, please send them our way so we can get into it. Would like to do that. Want to make this as interactive as we can in certain moments while also doing the things we want to try to do with the show as well. It's a balance. It's a balancing act. Burn says, do you think Charlotte will hire Paul Mcdonough as the GM to fix their roster mess? I agree with what Burn says. I don't think the owner will be happy with them being a mess on the field for very long. I don't see that. I don't think with what we've seen with the Carolina Panthers, he's not going to just settle for mediocrity. Do they hire Mcdonough, who quietly has been, I think, reinstated by MLS? That happened right before the start of the season. It was, I can't remember who reported it. It was kind of in a throwaway article that like, oh yeah, this happened too. I don't know. And Domer with the obvious joke about Charlotte going for 4 designated players. I really wonder how everything happened in Miami. We're probably not going to find out. It sounds like there was much more of an issue with the one of the Moss brothers, the more involved one, to the point that one of the other owners ratted him out to MLS. I don't know how much it was on Mcdonough, but he took the heat for it because he was that person that dealt with the league and he had to. But I also think the fact that he was reinstated, if I remember right, a year early,
sounds right,
maybe shows you that it wasn't all on him either. So they need to sign 4 or 5 designated players right now in Charlotte. Let's just get to 3 first.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a bad hire. I mean, it depends on what the situation is. And I think we saw that here in Atlanta versus what we saw in Miami, where it felt like they just dumped everything on Mcdonough and then you had ownership doing things off to the side anyway. Great. You go back to the beginning of Orlando questions. I think in part of a team, he was great here in Atlanta. He was absolutely great, but maybe because of some people's individual personal feelings based off other things, they have put too much credit on him when that's not how it worked here. It was a team building effort, and he might need to have the right people to work with. And if he can build a team that is suitable, then okay, maybe it works. But you got to ultimately have the right people making the final decisions. Everybody needs that in the situation because it's not Paul Mcdonough's money. You know, it's going to be David Tepper's money. He's got to either make the right decisions ultimately to, yes, I'm cutting the check. No, I'm not cutting the check. Go back out to the market. Or have somebody to make those decisions for him. And I think we saw that in Atlanta, that ultimately Darren Eales making those decisions, signing off, has really worked. You have to have that. And I think Mcdonough, to be successful, would need that. I do think, and look, it's one game in. Let's see what happens when you get to midseason, when you get closer to midseason, where they can really, I think, get active in the market and maybe some players are available. They still have time to add players now. If it's not good in June, yeah, they could look very different in the front office by the time you get to the summer window. They could, and they probably should. It's just not a good enough roster build. And there's not an excuse for why. It's just not. I'm sorry. I mean, we've seen it in this league enough. We know what you can do. We know what kind of resources that club has. We know even if you don't have a ton of resources, you can be competitive. We talked about Colorado. Like, there's ways to do it. And they just haven't even finished the first part of the job. The roster's not complete. So it's got to be better. It's got to be better. And ultimately, if it's not, somebody is going to have to probably go so somebody else can come in and make it better. That's just how it goes. Thank you, Domer. Yeah, it was a year early on Mcdonough. So I think that shows you. I mean, he was the one dealing with the league, so I think he had to take punishment there for what happened in Miami.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was all technically his fault, is maybe the best way to put it. Let's see. As we continue, Domer says as long as Charlotte doesn't dump all the other crap on Mcdonough that Miami did, it'd be an amazing hire. I don't know about the last part, because I think he's got to have the right construct to work in, which almost everybody in the league would need to have too. This is not anything about Mcdonough. You just have to have the right situation. And is that the problem in Charlotte? I don't know. I don't know, because they haven't completed their roster, and I don't know why. Is it because of the sporting director? Is it because of ownership? Is it somewhere in between? I don't know. But I don't think he fixes everything by himself. You got to have the right people. Yes, Ricky, we talked about the Bundesliga midfielder that St. Louis signed. No, he is not a designated player. He is going to play in MLS Next Pro in the second half of the season. He's going to finish the year with Cologne. Not every player from Germany signed is going to be designated player level. And I think that's something, again, talking about the growth of the league. It's important that you're signing guys that are willing to come over at this point. We'll pull up his numbers and what he has done this year. 22 years old, valued at €680,000, according to SofaScore. He's played in 4 games. He's barely played with Cologne in the Bundesliga this year. So, no, he's a player who has a lot of room to grow. I'm assuming he's somebody that Lutz Pfannenstiel, the sporting director in St. Louis, would have a beat on, have an understanding of, think he's going to fit. But, yeah, he's one for the product. He's definitely one for the long term, for sure. 4 games, I believe, doing the math, he's played about 30 minutes in the Bundesliga this year. So, Czech Youth International all the way up to the U21s.
And I think that having someone that you have your eye on, if you're Lutz Pfannenstiel, you bring him in the year early, you get him adjusted to what's going on with their system. It gives him a bit of a jump start with whatever they're anticipating him to be next season. It just gets him acclimated, and it gets him adjusted to what's going on here in the States.
Yeah, and he's still probably a lower tier roster guy.
Yeah.
Because he's going to play in Next Pro in the second half of this year. If he was higher tier, he would stay at Cologne and play there the first half of next year and then come for training camp. So that should tell you everything you know. Like, slow down on the expectations for the player specifically. I think the idea of making the signing is the important story here, that you're already starting to identify guys that fit and guys who might be under the radar a little bit that fit. That's the story, rather than the individual player here who, maybe he's a starter, maybe he's not for St. Louis next year, maybe. Sam, yes, we talked yesterday when the signing was made about former Tottenham player joining Tormenta. Hopefully we'll have more on that as we go. I think John is efforting on that with the folks in Tormenta.
Yes, we are, to hopefully have the Keziah Sterling 1v1 when everything is okay. And it'll be a fun conversation to have, to find out how he found out about it, what the conversations were like, what was, and what's attracting him to come and play in Statesboro, Georgia. I think that there are a lot of interesting things that you can check off here in this conversation about someone that you've tied to, Spurs. And okay, so Tottenham Hotspur to South Georgia Tormenta. And so I think that there's a lot to dig into there. And once again, when he gets acclimated to USL League One, how does he look, and how does he integrate for a team in South Georgia Tormenta that had it rough at the end of last season? And once they always traditionally have had playoff aspirations. And so how does Keziah Sterling work into that? And really, what attracted you to Statesboro, Georgia? That for me is going to be one of the good deep dives in a 1v1 coming up in a bit.
Yeah, no games in the Premier League for Sterling, but he played in a Champions League match for Tottenham. Spent time out on loan a number of different places, but he came through the Spurs system since 2017, I believe, and was under contract there through the end of last season. So, really interesting pickup. Really interesting pickup. We'll see where his level is as he comes in to join the USL League One side. Their seasons start. Tormenta starts April 2nd, week before they get into Open Cup. That's going to be tricky for those League One teams. We saw Tormenta play Atlanta United 2 over the weekend, Chattanooga Red Wolves tomorrow playing Atlanta United 2 in a preseason friendly. You've got to try to play as many friendlies as you can and get this training in this month to play your opener and then play an Open Cup match in the midweek. Greenville hosting the Oakland Roots in that second round. Charleston Battery are hosting Tormenta in that second round. It's hard. It's a really quick start. It's going to be even harder for the real lower division teams. The teams that qualified through open qualification in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, a lot of those are year-round kind of teams. They're amateur, but they're year-round. You've got a fairly stable roster of guys. The NPSL, the USL League 2 teams that are part of it, they're not used to playing competitive games in March, and they're not going to be able to get their Division 1 players from college to play in those games. The D1 players can't play until after the end of the school year, if I'm not mistaken. That's why the NPSL and USL League 2 seasons start in May. You can't get guys in before that. A lot of times you're getting guys in like a day, maybe the day of your first game, and then it's just a sprint. So those March games in the round 1 for the NPSL for the League 2 teams are going to be really difficult. The League 1 teams are going to struggle in round 2. The USL Championship teams are going to have huge advantages in round 2 as it currently stands. I think they'll just be more in a rhythm with their season starting the weekend of March 12th. So you'll be a month in before you get into your first Open Cup game. And then the MLS teams are in right after that. At least most of them are in right after that. Atlanta United will be in right after that. Atlanta, I mean, I've talked about it when we played Birmingham. I could see them drawn with Birmingham if they get past either Southern States or Georgia Revolution in round 2. I could see them drawn with the winner of Tormenta and Charleston Battery. If Greenville Triumph win, I could see Atlanta United drawn with Greenville. They could get drawn with either of the Chattanooga teams, either the Red Wolves or Chattanooga FC, if they advance. There's more possible opponents than ever before for Atlanta United in the Open Cup. And that's an exciting thing. It's going to be a lot of fun this year with the Open Cup back.
Yeah, I know traditionally in the Open Cup in the past, you can pretty much plot your path of USL Championship team goes here. And it's a matchup that you see over and over and over again. But now with all of these other franchises that have started in the last handful of years, it's that little added bit of excitement that's attached to it where it could be somebody different. And I think that, the conversation that we had when we were getting ready for the Atlanta United and Birmingham Legion preseason match, when we were at Ghost Training, you had it mapped out that it could be a bit of a teaser for Open Cup. And knowing what we saw at Protective Stadium, I think that it would be a nice little added piece to what we're seeing here in the Southeast if the matchups aren't what they traditionally are and you get to go in different directions for a change.
Yeah, there's just so many more teams that I hope it does get mixed up a little bit more. We'll see. Burned asked, can Tormenta beat the Charleston Battery in that game? They'll be underdogs because it'll be their second competitive game. So, I mean, they'll definitely be underdogs there. I think both teams have a lot of questions. I mean, Tormenta is trying to get to the level that I think they've wanted to be. They've had success with USL League 2. They haven't had as much success in USL League 1. I was really impressed with what I saw on Saturday against Atlanta United 2. Now, some of those players won't end up making the final team, but I think you saw a team that had some pretty good ideas about the way they want to play. It's a credit to Ian Cameron and the work that the coaching staff is doing. Yeah, I think Tormenta can beat the Battery, but they'll be the underdog there. The Battery have questions. It's the first time they've had a new manager since the 90s. Connor Casey in charge now. they had some good and some bad in the Carolina Challenge Cup, which was really early in their preseason, as it always is. So it's hard to take away too much from it. That's going to be a competitive game. You look at the matchups in US Open Cup for the first couple rounds. That's one of the round 2 games, at least in this area, that I think is one of the more competitive ones. Birmingham getting an NPSL team, either the Georgia Revolution, who have to go out to Mississippi to play Southern States SC. You're going to get an NPSL team there who's going to be playing, before their season starts. They're not going to have their D1 guys. It's going to be a road trip for either one because Birmingham's hosting it. That's going to be really tough. Birmingham should be a pretty clear favorite. I don't think Charleston is as clear of a favorite over Tormenta, but they will be favored. I want to see what Charleston looks like in the first month of the season. As you get into round 2, April 5th through the 7th, and I think we have most of the dates. There's a few that are still a little bit of a question mark in where they could be. So teams in our area, Charlotte Independence, which is now a USL League 1 team, they're going to play either South Carolina United or North Carolina Fusion U23s, depending on who advances out of the first round. Indy 11 and St. Louis City from MLS Next Pro. That's going to be really interesting because I don't know what St. Louis's MLS Next Pro team is going to look like. Detroit City from USL Championship now playing the Michigan Stars of NISA, a team they know really well. That's going to be a fun Open Cup night in Hamtramck, Michigan. All the second round games are going to be on ESPN Plus, by the way. It's the first round games that might not all be on ESPN Plus. Tampa Bay Rowdies might have to deal with the Villages if they don't break any rules in their first game. They play Orlando FC Wolves. We scroll on down and we look at the other, again, in our kind of area here. We're not going nationwide with it. Charleston hosting Tormenta. The Miami FC could play Miami United FC of the NPSL, some of the best kits in the NPSL.
No doubt.
Or they could play City Soccer FC, one of the local qualifiers. North Carolina FC of USL League 1 will play RGV from USL Championship. That's an intriguing matchup. Lou City will host the Chattanooga Red Wolves. That's a really tough draw for the Red Wolves in round 2. That'd be a big upset if they can go to Lou City and pull that one. That's tougher for me than Tormenta going to Charleston.
Yeah,
because Lou City is just more established than where Charleston is. Forward Madison, I know they're a favorite of quite a few people who listen to the show. They are hosting the winner of Cleveland SC or Chicago FC United. Cleveland FC is NPSL. Chicago FC United is USL 2. Chattanooga FC of NISA hosts Memphis 901.
That'll be fun.
That'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a very interesting game. Chattanooga FC has really tried to be at that kind of a level. They're in NISA, and NISA's best team was Detroit City. Detroit City was consistently the best team out of NISA. Now they've moved over to USL Championship. Chattanooga has been underneath Detroit City. They couldn't beat them in big games. Now can they beat a USL Championship team in Memphis? It's a really intriguing matchup, and I think they're capable of an upset. Memphis has to come in there and play really, really well to get that one taken care of. That's a good matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Greenville hosting Oakland is a really interesting matchup because that's a long trip for the Oakland Roots. Greenville has been consistently one of the best teams in USL League 1, but this is a League 1 team against a championship team. How does it go? Intrigued. Very, very intrigued. April 7th is going to be the Birmingham game in Birmingham, hosting either Southern States SC or Georgia Revolution of NPSL, both NPSL teams. Bunch of other games all over the place. Round 3 is where Atlanta United comes in, and the draw will happen after round 2. So it will be somewhat geographical. The MLS teams are going to be spread out among the groups as evenly as possible. The winners of the second round and the MLS teams coming into it will be grouped geographically into groups of 4 or 6, depending on the distribution of the teams after the second round. They're going to try to spread the MLS teams out. 5 groups with 2 teams if it's groups of 4, 7 groups with 1. If it's groups of 6, it'll be 1 group with 3, 7 groups with 2 teams. So they're going to have a good number of MLS versus lower division matchups. All MLS teams will face a lower division team. And I think you're going to get situations where they might face them again in the next round. Random selection inside the group will determine the pairs. So they're going to divide the groups geographically, either into groups of 4 or 6, and then it's a draw within the group. So keep that in mind as we get closer to that round 3 draw. They try to keep it geographical for cost for these smaller teams. Having run a team that qualified for the Open Cup out of the local qualifiers, Atlanta FC, that was NPSL, but at that point, NPSL didn't get automatic qualifiers, so we had to go through the qualification process. It was much appreciated that it was geographic, because you don't have a budget to all of a sudden find out 2 weeks before, oh, we have to buy plane tickets to go play in California. Yeah, now we can't play the rest of the season. That's great. It's reimbursed. At least that's what it was then. I don't know if it is now, but we were drawn with Charleston. And again, being a very small, very, very small club, they ended up becoming the Silverbacks reserves. We kept the cost as what we could manage. We drove over the night before. So we stayed in Charleston the night before, played the game. Some very interesting refereeing decisions in that game. Some things I've never seen before in my time in the match, in the game. Never seen an AR end up in the technical area on the other half of the field than he is assigned to argue with a coach and then say that the coach should be thrown out.
Wow.
Never seen that happen before. The coach was in his technical area and the AR entered the technical area to argue. That was a new one.
I still think you ought to write a book.
I might. It was also an interesting one when the captain of the Charleston Battery headbutted the Atlanta FC captain, and the Atlanta FC left back was the one who got red carded in the whole fracas. That was intriguing. It was fun to see 11v8 for the end of that game, because then there was another yellow. There was another red card. There was a second yellow. That was kind of dodgy, but okay. Then there was a very deserved red.
Ever heard of 11v8? I've heard of
as 11v8, and man, the Battery wanted to run that score up on 11v8. They were not very happy with our scrappy group of guys, and they couldn't score 11v8. That was fascinating. It was a wild day, night, all of it, and yeah, all kinds of things. Anyway, there's your flashback story with me for the day. Okay, let's get back into questions. I left some things out that I'm going to continue to leave out, and we'll get into those another time. Okay, let's see. ATL Pilgrim says, would love to see Atlanta versus Chattanooga FC at either venue. Yeah, I mean, Chattanooga FC is a great story. I'd love to see Atlanta with any of these teams. Nothing against the Battery. I just want to see a different matchup.
Yes.
So if it's Greenville, if it's Tormenta, if it's Birmingham, if it's Chattanooga Red Wolves, if it's Chattanooga FC, any of those would be great, and would be, I think, a really intriguing matchup. Charlotte Independence, if they can advance through that, yes, any of those. Would love to see it. Bart wants to read the column from AL.com when Atlanta plays Birmingham in the Open Cup. Then it would maybe be a really accurate column. Hey, got to get those clicks, man. Got to get the clicks. Got the clicks.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Nick says, I know you talked about it yesterday, but if Marsh doesn't keep Leeds up, was it still a good move for him and the team? They had to make the move on Bielsa.
Yeah.
And they'd already identified Marsh as the guy for next season. I think it would have been a better move to come in after the season and have a full preseason to start to make the transitions that he wants. I'm really fascinated to see how his leads look different than Bielsa's and how much he can do in that regard, because he's got to get results. I don't know exactly how he's going to handle that, because I don't think he's been in that situation before in his career where he's gone in mid-season to a team that's desperate for results. It's a different kind of hire. You had to do some of this, and if you're already going to go with Marsh, if that was already where your mind was for next year, why not go ahead even if they get relegated? I don't think it's a situation of Big Sam coming in and it's, just keep us up and then we'll figure out the rest. we were already going to go with you. We got to make the move now. Come in and do the best you can is how I feel like it'll go. Now, how it will go from the media perspective, no, it'll be completely different. Every ridiculous comment you can find about American coaches will come out if they get relegated.
Absolutely.
Every stupid, outdated, dumb comment will come out if they get relegated. But no, I think they had to do it. And I think if they're already going to hire him and that was already where their head was, do it now. Why not?
You were outscored 17-2 in this current 4-match losing streak. In your last 2 matches, you were outscored 10-0. You had a 6-0 and a 4-0. I mean, you had to make this move.
Yeah, it was time. Yeah. It was just time. Bernd, we have not discussed, because it's not official yet. It's been reported by Grant Wall and by The Athletic that Turner/HBO/Discovery Plus, I mean, it's going to be a lot of slashes here pretty soon with all kinds of things happening. Reportedly, they are getting the US Soccer Federation TV rights. So it'll be national team, men's and women's. It'll be youth. It won't be CONCACAF competitions. It will be home qualifiers. It won't be away qualifiers. But the men should not have qualifiers ahead of 26. That has not been announced yet. The women with the competition that CONCACAF is doing, I don't think this will get that. So it's kind of a weird deal. I want to know how long the deal is. That's one of the big questions, because then there should be qualifiers ahead of the 2030 World Cup. But is this contract through that long, or is it just through the 26 cycle? I don't know. A lot of people have talked about what they did with the Champions League for the most of a season that they had the Champions League. There were some production issues that I think have to be rectified here going forward. I'm not as worried about the talent side of things. I know there's people who are going to jump on, current NBA head coaches, not at the time, but now, who were on soccer broadcasts. I didn't hate the idea of some of the execution that I didn't think worked. Because you're talking about somebody who's incredibly knowledgeable and is an owner of a team, and family was a brother was a Canadian national team player. He was a very promising young player coming up. It's how you set that person up for success. That was my problem. You can't treat him like a normal pundit, because he's not. You have to use him in a very specific way. And I just don't think they did. I think they kind of threw him out and let him try to figure it out, which wasn't fair to Steve Nash. So that's more my issue there. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. They're very aggressive in sports. They've done a great job with the NHL. We know what they've done with the NBA over the years. There's no reason why they can't get soccer right. They just have to get it right. If they're going to, get the rights to this, they have to get it right. They didn't ultimately get it right with Champions League. Now, then you had the pandemic. They didn't have as much success in the short term as they did. They had an out. They took the out. I don't think that should really matter here, because that was a whole different situation. They have to get it right, especially like they've done with the NHL, where, you can speak to it more than I can, John, about NHL coverage, but I've heard nothing but really positive things about how they've presented the NHL on Turner.
Because you've brought in the mix of experienced hosts from other networks immediately that have come in as a part of this, experienced analysts who've been on other networks. You've brought in the play-by-play guys that are the voices that are associated with the sport. Kenny Albert is their number one guy for the NHL on TNT. And you've also brought in the legends to be your analysts as well. So it literally is taking successful pieces from other places, putting your turn on it, and graphics are different, approach is a little different, the larger studio, and they've tried to do the NBA on TNT approach with the wide studio and interaction and all that kind of stuff. So basically, they're taking their formula from basketball, applying it to hockey with the personalities that folks already know and are safe places and safe voices and experienced voices to go. So no, I have seen nothing negative about how TNT has started presenting the NHL, and just, if they get it right this time after what happened last time, that's the key. Take the formula that has made you successful in other sports, apply it here, then you should be okay from a production standpoint.
Yeah, I think what I keep coming back to with this kind of stuff, and this is just general. It's not even a Turner thing for me. It's just in general. I hope they find the right balance. And I think what they've done with Inside the NBA has set the bar for studio shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think pre and post game kind of coverage. It is the GOAT. It is the best. And at times, maybe we only focus on one aspect of it, the humor, which, I mean, they're great with. I mean, Barkley's hilarious. Now you add Shaq to the mix. They're all, kind of ripping on each other. You get some really funny segments. But where they're great is where they're not trying to be funny. And I think at times maybe the takeaway that we see a little bit too much in soccer pre and post is the try to be funny. That'll happen if you have the right group of people. That'll happen over time, especially, and it'll have more meaning. But we miss some of the important conversations that need to be had, whether it's tactical, whether it's philosophical about the way a team is approaching a game, whether it's, more information about a coach, about a player, so you get to know them more. I think at times we go more for the shtick. That is part of what makes the Inside the NBA so good, but we miss the substance.
Yeah.
And the shtick works if you have the substance. If it's just haha, funny, let's make jokes, it doesn't work as well. And I really hope that whatever they do, and I think they've done this with the NHL, I hope that they do that with the sport. And I think it's down to the people in the sport too, to really push for that. We deserve the substance too. We deserve the commentary that I think Barkley and Shaq had around the All-Star game and talking about the greats of the game. And we deserve that substance too. It doesn't have to just be haha, funny. And I hope that we get both. We all love the funny stuff too. I mean, don't get me wrong, but that can't be the whole pre and post game coverage.
Right.
There's got to be substance. And there's got to be the conversations about why a team is playing a certain way, why a club believes in playing a certain way, why this manager is one of the best, why this player is one of the most important to follow, that kind of stuff. Got to have both. And I hope that we do. That's the main thing I'm asking for with Turner is give us more substance.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done that in their other sports. There's no reason why they can't do it with soccer. They should follow the blueprint, get the right people there, and treat the product with respect. That's all that I hope for. Grimseye wants to know what we think of Justin Merrim. Justin Merrim, back with RSL, signed a new deal with them. He is 33 at this point, just turned 33 in December. Started on the weekend, didn't have a great match against Houston. I don't really know who did from RSL or from Houston for that matter. Played in every game last year, but started 15, or played in 34, including postseason. So not quite every game, but only started 15. I think that's who he is at this point, and you got to manage his minutes. I think he's still effective. I think he can still be a really impactful player off the bench, but I don't think he's a guy who can play, 20 to 25 starts. I think if you're asking that, you're going to get diminishing returns. I think you've got to use him in the right spots. He can be a big attacking option off the bench when needed and a spot starter. I think if you get him down to where you're starting about 10 times this year, but you're using him in impactful moments off the bench, he can be productive for RSL. But as a starter every day, I don't think he is going to be as productive as he could be.
Yeah, right there with you. I think that if you bring him in for that 20 or 30 minutes and he gets to use the experience, use the force that he has as an offensive power. These days, you can't do that for 20 matches with Justin Merrim if you start him. I think that if you bring him off the bench, give him 20 or 30, let him impact a game in the ways that he can and manage that, then I think that's the best way for him. I think that if you've got him out there starting, then you're going to risk grinding him into the ground after a very short period of time, and then he's not doing RSL any good.
Non-Talk says, not sure if you guys touched on it, but will Reyna be in the lineup at the Azteca? It's way too early to say. After his re-injury, there was pretty much everybody wrote off that he would be part of the U.S. national team at that time from these March qualifiers. Sounds like maybe there's a chance now, but it's way too early to say. I don't think he starts. If he gets back into training at Dortmund and maybe makes an appearance before that, I don't think he starts. I would rather have him off the bench because you got 3 games. If you get to the Costa Rica game mattering, I'd rather have a fresh Gio Reyna in my back pocket for that one. I honestly would, than risking him against Mexico, which is going to be a tough one anyway. I'd like to have him off the bench in the middle game against Panama, or if he can start for that one and you can win that and go ahead and book your spot, which should be enough. Okay, I'm not going to risk him for Mexico. If you get something out of Mexico, then the Panama game might be a little bit different. If you don't, and you're still worried about his fitness, then maybe you're keeping him in your back pocket for Costa Rica. But my guess is he's most likely to play against Panama if he's even able to make the trip, which is still a question mark.
Yeah, and I want to, and I don't think I'm in the minority here. I want to take care of business, so Costa Rica is not a part of the discussion. Get your business done. Get the 4 points probably that you need, and make sure that Costa Rica is as far away from the conversation as humanly possible. But if it gets to that point, then I don't want to rush Gio Reyna back at the same time. If it gets to that, then I want him for that last match, but I don't want to rush him back and risk anything else down the line.
Yeah, 100%. Next one on the board, PD says, is it possible that Legion might jump to MLS? Not in the current expansion process, because I just think Vegas is going to be the one for 30. Don Garber's opened the door for 31 and 32. It's going to be down to the ownership. I think what opens the door for a location like Birmingham is what Garber said about, at this stage, they're not really looking for just checking boxes on markets. They're looking for the right kind of ownership. They're looking for the right kind of addition to the league, to where it's not about, the demographics of your market. Because Birmingham's a little bit smaller market than some of the other contenders. What they have done in general, and I don't know the current financial situation of the Legion's ownership, so I can't really speak to it, but what they've done as a club has been really impressive. On the field, they've built a team with an identity. They've continued to add to it. I think this is a year where they're a contender to win the USL Championship. And off the field, I think they've done all the right things in getting underway, getting an academy going, doing work in the community, making the move to Protective Stadium, which can be an MLS venue. Absolutely, no problem with Protective Stadium as an MLS venue. It's a great setup for it. But it will take the ownership to have the resources to be able to do it, or to bring in people who can help make that happen. All that's possible. I don't know what the next step is past 30 for MLS, and that's why it's really hard to answer it, because they're not in the mix for right now. I think Vegas gets 30, it's done, whatever. 31 and 32, which I do think MLS will go to. It would be kind of a no-brainer not to. I don't know how soon they do, or if they maybe wait till after the 26 World Cup to get to that point, which is kind of where my gut is. Could Birmingham get into the mix at that stage? Yeah, if they have the resources to do it and they continue to build, absolutely, they could. But what Legion does now to get there is vital, because they have to show that this is a better place for MLS to come than Louisville when we're talking about USL Championship. And Lou City has thrown things here or there around about being interested in MLS. Phoenix is going to be in that conversation, and they've got the resources to maybe get to that point. But you can have questions about the Phoenix market. Absolutely. San Diego is going to be in that mix. So there's going to be a lot of competition. But I definitely don't rule out Birmingham Legion at some point being in MLS. But I think it is a longer road, and it's probably going to take more resources. But everything you do between now and then is important, because we're talking 10, 15 years down the road. Does MLS buy USL Championship, or teams come in as an MLS 2 and then you create a pro rel between MLS 1 and 2? Is that something that happens way down the road? Who knows? Who knows? That's we're getting into fantasy land. But in the last 3 expansion teams to get MLS to 32 teams, it's a long shot, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility because of everything Legion has done up to this point. I don't think they're going to add all Western teams for 30, 31, and 32. There's going to be somebody in east of the Mississippi. I think. I don't see that you're going to add Phoenix, San Diego, and Vegas. I think somebody in that 3 is going to be. 2 of them will be out west because there's a lot of room out there to add teams, and there's some good markets and good ownership groups that are interested. But I think 1 will be east of the Mississippi. And could it be Birmingham? Could it be Louisville City? Could it be somebody that we don't even know about right now? Yeah, everything's on the table. Everything's on the table.
Yeah, I mean, could be a Detroit, with what we've seen from that market, because those discussions.
What have we seen from that market?
I mean, just the desire to have the NFL group want to have it in.
But John, you're going back to like 3 years ago. Like there hasn't been any comments out of that group in a long time. A long, long time. And it wasn't just the NFL group. They came on at the end of it. It was
and Gilbert, I think, was also part of it too, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was. That's who was driving it. But no, we haven't heard anything from them in a long time. Everything changes so fast. I don't want to mislead or confuse. Detroit City is the team to pay attention to there, but they would need a whole lot more resources to make that jump. And I think USL Championships are a really good move for them as such a well-run, stable club coming in. I'm excited to see them in USL Championship, and I want to see where their level on the field happens here. That's what they got to worry about first. If anybody's going to do an MLS team in Detroit, they need to go through Detroit City to do it. Everything else it's old now. And look, everything's changing so fast. The conversation about where MLS is from the last time that Detroit was really considered as a possible expansion location to now, MLS is a completely different place. So just because they talked about it a while ago, I mean, that's like that's ancient history.
And, obviously with Louisville, Lynn Family, what they've done with Lynn Family Stadium, yes, it's expandable, but would that 15,000 the 15,000 max expandable satisfy Major League Soccer? Would they have to expand it even further to 22 or 25? That's the big question. If you want to do something out of Louisville, with Birmingham, they've got
You absolutely have to expand Louisville. There's no question about it.
And then with Birmingham, you've got protective seats in the 40s when it's a full house, and so that the venue is there. And it will be an interesting look over the next handful of years to see how Legion are in protective in that venue and how it continues to grow. I mean, it was a great step for them going from BBVA to protective. It's the next stage in their growth. Now, what do you do in this stage of growth that you're in?
Yeah, it was always the vision. And that's, I think, the thing that's impressed me the most about what Legion has done in Birmingham is that they had a vision from day one. And Jay Heaps and Tom Sohn and the ownership have executed it. And now they're at a point where they have to, as we talked about with Charlotte, like you can have a big opener, you can get a lot of people in the building, and that's not a preseason game like it was for Atlanta. It's the home opener against Tampa Bay Rowdies. You can really push that, but the quality on the field has to match it. Legion's quality on the field will match it, and they have to continue to grow. They have to. I think a big year for Birmingham is averaging over 10,000, and they're capable of it. It is a jump. It is a jump from where they were. They were in a smaller venue. It's a jump, but I would love to see them aspire to that and get there. And then you can start to have this conversation, because I think the other thing too that we have to keep in mind, because there are people out there who will point to it like, oh, well, their attendance wasn't good before, so it's not going to be any better if they move up a level. No, that's not accurate. Atlanta, I think, shows that. I think Charlotte shows that. If you're in a bigger city and you are in the major leagues, and yes, even people who don't know the sport as well as maybe us having this conversation every day know that there is a difference between USL Championship or NISA or USL League One or whatever lower division it is and MLS. Your average person, if you are interested in going to try something new, if you drop a major league team in the market, they're going to be more open to it. There are people who will not go see the lower division soccer team in town, but would go see the first division team in town. That's just human nature, like it or not. And I don't have a problem with people who are new to the game and want to go sample it for the first time. I think that's great. Maybe there's some people in the game that need to change their approach and understand that that's a good thing, not a bad thing, that you have new fans who maybe don't know everything going on straight out of the gates. You need to convert them. That's where the league grows. That's where these teams grow. It's not from being gatekeepers. And if people didn't want to get on board, like in Charlotte, if people didn't want to get on board with the Charlotte Independents, but are now on board with Charlotte FC, that's a good thing. Charlotte Independents had very limited resources. They were not a major league team in a major league city. Now Charlotte FC is. Welcome these new folks in. Hopefully they get hooked. Hopefully they're not turned off if it's a tough night on the field on Saturday. Hopefully they enjoy the experience. These are the things that are important. And Birmingham can do the same thing. If it's a little bit lower level because it's USL Championship, that's fine. You don't have a major league team in Birmingham to compete with. You do have college football, I know, which is different, but even that is spread out. I mean, UAB football is not quite at the same level as some others. Birmingham Legion can be as big of a team in town as anything else. I'd love to see that happen. And if for some reason things come together and it's, somebody comes in and wants to cut the check, or that ownership group can cut the check and they want to move up and they've got the venue to do it and they've got the infrastructure to do it, you're going to get a whole lot of new people out there who haven't come out to sample Birmingham Legion, and they're going to come out and try it if that happens. So it's all growth. This is all good. It's all good stuff. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yes. For me, growth, I agree with you. Growth is a good thing. And I want folks to sit there and understand that growth can help your market. It can help your game, and not just in the level that you're watching it at. It can help the entire area that's associated with that particular growth. And so, embrace the idea that there are teams with ambition and they want to take those next steps, and they want to sit there and they want to challenge themselves, because it does the sport well economically, and it does the sport well in the sense of the exposure and the growth aspect of it. So no, when you see a team do what they're doing, like we're seeing with Birmingham, sit there and embrace it, because that's a good thing that they want to take these kinds of steps and try to grow in whatever ways that you're looking at.
Yes, Alex Bassine, all shtick and no substance is bad. I did not put you in that category, though, sir. That is something you need to look in the mirror about yourself, my friend. Byrne, I think you're making my point, though. Byrne says, I disagree that the formula that works for TNT and the NBA will also work for soccer if they don't pick the correct people. I think you got to pick the correct people. Like, that's the key. The formula can work. You got to pick the correct people. If you don't have the correct people, no formula will work. It doesn't matter what formula you come up with. You got to have the right people in place. You could have done better with the people that you had for Champions League coverage, but there was a limitation to what you could do there. You got to get the right people. That's what it comes down to. And no, when I'm saying formula, I'm not saying like literally copy the format and do this, and you're going to play the Barkley role and you're going to play the EJ role. No, don't do that. Like, have people be themselves. But the formula of mixing entertainment and substance, that can be done, and that should be done. It can't just be entertainment. And I think at times they went too much for entertainment, and other networks do too. In American soccer, look, that's not solely on Turner. I want more substance. I hope we get more substance. And I think that will help the entertainment be more impactful. It will make it better to have both. And you got to get the right people. That's what it comes down to. I'm going to try to skip through just a little bit more. Michael Ruiz says, I don't think the national MLS writers are giving us enough credit for beating Sporting Kansas City with 5+ starters out. Would you agree? Welcome to Atlanta United and MLS. Like, it happens all the time, and it will continue to. And I don't know why. I don't really get it. But, yeah, I do think there's a little bit of a bias. There's a bias towards certain teams, and there's a bias against certain teams. And, it's just any national conversation. I mean, it's the same in baseball. There's bias towards the Yankees, no matter what they're doing. There's bias towards the Dodgers, no matter what they're doing. NFL, there's bias towards the Cowboys, no matter what they're doing. Like, that's all common. I think Atlanta should be in that conversation by now. But if it's not going to be, it's not going to be. I've always got that chip on my shoulder because I think there's been a bias against Atlanta sports across all the boards, all the time. It's always, oh no, it's bad. It's Loserville. No, it's bad. Oh well, no, they're okay. Yeah, it's all right, but no, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, Trae Young deals with this. Trae Young doesn't get the love that he should get. He's tying all-time records of the greatest players who've ever played this game. Well, I don't know if he's an all-star.
But he plays in Atlanta.
Yeah, shut up. Get out, morons. So it's just part of it. So, yeah, welcome to the conversation. It'll continue. I think it was a good win. I don't think Kansas City was great, and Kansas City was missing pieces too. I think Kansas City really struggled to take control of the game, and that's a credit to Atlanta after Araujo got hurt. I think the adjustments that Atlanta made were really impressive. If people wanted to say, well, I don't know if they're the fifth best team in the league right now because I want to see what they look like when Almada gets here and if Araujo is out for an extended period of time, I can buy that. But it was a really good win. Power rankings after week 1, I don't really care. At all. Let's see what else we got as I continue to bounce through. Tom Cato, yes, Birmingham Legion is New England Revolution South. They have done a very good job with all those connections. If you didn't get a chance to see it, Tom, our interview with Jay Heaps from the preseason game, I think it's still up on. Yeah, it would still be up on our Twitch channel. About 30 minutes into the show from Birmingham from Ghost Train Brewing. Really good conversation with Jay Heaps. Just awesome to have him as long as we did and just how open he was. I was really, really impressed with him. Let's see. Tom says Detroit lost their expansion opportunity when they said they'd be playing at Ford Field, and rightly so. I disagree with the last part because we're seeing that work here in Atlanta. I wanted more information about how it would work at Ford Field, but just the idea of playing in the bigger stadium, I think a lot of soccer people were rankled by that. And I will argue that until I can't argue anymore because I like the ambition. I like that Charlotte's playing in an NFL stadium. I love that Atlanta's playing in a stadium that you can draw 67,500 for opening day. I love that Charlotte's playing in a stadium they can draw 75,000 for opening day. I love that San Jose will go play games of the Cali Classico at Stanford. I wish more teams would get out of this idea that we got to be in a 20,000 seater. I love that New England is in Gillette, and when they draw, it's great atmosphere. It's a great environment. It looks good on TV. I'm good with it. I want more ambition. I don't want less ambition. I think there's some stadiums that have been built for this league that are too small, and very recent ones. Austin's one.
Absolutely.
I like that Nashville's 30,000 at least. That should be the bare minimum at this point. I don't think the Ford Field thing, I think in a lot of people's mind, that was what affected it. It should not have, because if you can fill it. If you can fill the lower level, if that's 35, if that's 40, I don't know the configuration. Great. I don't have a problem with having big ambition at all. Seattle, another one in an NFL venue that can open it up more. I wish they would at times. Ricky says, what are the chances we see Nick Alifi at the San Siro today? I don't think he's in Milan. He was in Rome at last time that I heard anything from Nick Alifi. So I'm going to go with very low chances that we see him. But if you see somebody run on and kick an Inter player, it's probably Nick. John Brooks will be leaving Wolfsburg at the end of the season. That's been talked about for a while. I think it is official now.
Yes.
No shock there. Let's see. As we scroll through again, trying to catch up so we can actually stop talking at this point. But I'm trying to get everybody's questions as conversations happen. Storm Chaser Kevin says, with the growth of soccer, small teams are going to grow with tons of markets from big to small. There's only a set number of teams USL can handle, right? What's going to give? Expansion of NPSL, make USL bigger like Euro lower leagues. I think you'll see regional leagues at the third division league and below. And honestly, even at the second division level, I'd be fine with it if USL Championship wanted to go down that road. I'm really curious to see what the long-term vision for USL Championship is. I hope it is not trying to copy first divisions in other countries or MLS, and I hope that they do their own thing, because I think there's huge potential at that level, maybe more than any other level in American soccer. But same with D3, which can be League One, which can be Next Pro, which can be NISA. There's a place for all of it. I think NISA would maybe be better off a level below that as an entry level, a Division 4 for pro, where the standards are lower and clubs can come in and get their feet wet and figure out, can we be a professional team or not? But the models that NPSL and League Two and UPSL have about being regional, there is no reason why that should not follow up to at least the third division from a professional standpoint. And I'd do it at the second. Germany has regionalized lower divisions below the second division, and Germany is a much smaller country. Brazil has their state leagues, and they have regional leagues below, I think, the third or the fourth division, but Brazil's crazy. Argentina has regional leagues below the second division. Their second division is national. The third division, I believe, is where they have some regional stuff. In this country, you should have a number of regional leagues. And if you kind of go back to the old USL kind of setup, the old USISL thing, where you had these regional leagues that would then have I think they called it the Sizzling Six, because they'd have 6 regions and it'd have a 6-team final national championship kind of thing. For the third division and below, if it's 6, if it's 8, if whatever, however many regions you want to set up, there's no reason why you couldn't have 50, 60, 70 third division teams in this country. Look at what minor league baseball used to be. There's no reason why you couldn't do that as it continues to grow. I think we get way too hung up when we have the lower division conversation in this country about what certification level U.S. Soccer gives you, what certificate you get to put on your wall in your league office. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't think that in Carrollton with Georgia Storm, they really care what league they are in. If they're playing a team from Mcdonough, like Georgia Revolution, or from Gainesville, like Limeño, or Kennesaw, like Apatios, you're playing a local team, and they're probably going to have some fans who come over, and it's going to have a cool atmosphere, and it's a good night out. I think as you move up a level, I've said it for many years, it's better for a Charleston to play Charlotte, to play Greenville, to play Richmond, to play North Carolina FC out of the Triangle than to play San Diego. I don't know if playing San Diego draws more fans for you than playing Richmond. And it should be regional. It should be more regional. It cuts down costs. You can invest more in developing players. You can invest more into your community rather than buying more expensive plane tickets for something that really doesn't do anything for you except feed ego. So I'd love to see the change, or what's going to give. I'd love to see it be more regionalized competition, because that's what worked in minor league baseball for a long time and still works in a lot of markets. You don't have to fly across the country and have these long trips to go play teams if you are a non-top flight team. I think even the second division should do it, but third division below it should be a no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer.
I think that the plans for USL League One, I mean, right now, yes, we're looking at teams that are spread out across the country, but I think the plan for USL League One is to have that regionalization.
What was talked about early on, and I do want to see where it goes continuing. I do want to see where it continues to go, because that was the original conversation.
And to have the teams that are right now in USL League One, yes, there is that southeastern footprint, but then you can hopefully, if this continues to grow as you anticipate, you have those hubs where you've got the southeastern hub, you've got the northeastern hub, you have a midwestern hub, southwestern and far western, those kinds of things, where you can have that USISL approach, and then they don't see each other until the postseason, where you're not having to worry about finances and you're not having to worry about geography and plane flights and all these kinds of things.
Well, you got to worry about it. I mean, because I can speak from experience here. Like, if you are I know people rankle at the minor league term, but you know what I'm saying. If I say it, it's not disrespectful. if you're a lower division team, if you're a minor league team, and you make a playoff run at the end, to say that it doesn't affect your finances is incorrect. It can absolutely throw your finances out of whack, but at least there's a potential win there.
Yeah.
At least there's something that's more important. A regular season game flying across the country is meaningless.
Yeah.
If it is a national semifinal, if you want to go to that point, and you're doing a home and away with somebody, okay, that's a different conversation entirely. It's still expensive,
yes,
and it can still affect your bottom line if you don't have a lot of resources, but at least there's a meaning to it.
I mean, right now in the current structure, you've got teams that are having to probably connect 2 or 3 flights to go from one end of the country to the other. Yeah. And that is an absolute counterweight to your economics and to your bottom line. And I know that when you're looking at USL League One, and I know that I keep gravitating toward that example because you have the geographic extremes right now for a league that's trying to grow. But
you got to grow.
Right. And that's the thing, is like you've got to grow and take these growing pains as a part of it under the hope and the auspice of that you will have these regionalizations to where it won't be as bad for you in the regular season, but you still have that postseason opportunity where you will be challenged, but at the same time, there's an investment at the end, hopefully.
Yeah. I thought we were going to wrap up. We're going to try to wrap up. Storm Chaser Kevin continued on and said, I like that the 2 teams getting the boot from USL. It said teams like Tormenta, Battery, Legion want to play other towns and real teams, not 2 teams. I'll actually dispute you a little bit there, Kevin, because I think the option should be there for teams if they want to do it. I understand what you're saying. And I think there have been teams that have played in USL that have not taken it seriously from a playing perspective, or from a marketing or anything else perspective. And those are probably the teams that you're talking about here. But I also think that if a MLS team wanted to field a team and meet all the USL standards, they should be allowed to. I don't like that they're being pushed into something they had to create, because look, I think there's some people who know better, first off, that have started a narrative that MLS pulled out of USL. That's not what happened. And it's not malicious. It's USL wanted to do their own thing. And there are people who agree with Kevin here and think that the independent teams should only play other independent teams. The 2 teams shouldn't be there. It's a harder sell for their fans. There's all kinds of different reasons. Some dumb ones like, well, they're going to loan a player down and then we might lose this game. No, the MLS team's not going to affect their MLS roster by loaning a player down to play in a USL game just to hurt Louisville's day. That's not going to happen. But there are people who have strongly believed that USL should be USL. You have to understand the history. USL needed the partnership with MLS when they created the partnership with MLS. USL is not where they are today if they didn't do that. No way around it. They did it. It was the right move. It was a smart move. It's why USL is still around. It's why the NASL is not. It's part of the reason why the NASL is not around. It's the reason why USL got back to the same level as NASL by the end of the NASL's existence. But now the USL wants to go their own way. They did not want the 2 teams in their league. They're out. They would be well served to welcome some in if they wanted to do it, if they wanted to meet the standard. And I would imagine that there are USL owners who would agree with that, but not enough. So now MLS has to create something for their second teams, because we've seen firsthand in Atlanta how important the second team is to development. So they create MLS Next Pro. So now USL has kind of forced MLS to creating competition for League One. So there can't be any complaints if Rochester, for example, comes into MLS Next Pro as opposed to USL League One. They forced that competition to be created. So now we'll see where all that goes. I don't think MLS Next Pro is intended to be competition. It is by default because it's going to be at the same level. I guess my biggest wish for American soccer at the lower division level is that maybe we get out of being hung up on some things like this and focus on building your team and your community. That's the number one thing. The league politics, the league back and forth, the trolls on Twitter, that kind of stuff doesn't affect it. Ultimately, your team is successful if you are doing a good job in your community. Period. It's that simple. The good teams will find the right league for themselves. Detroit City's a prime example, going from NPSL to NISA, now to USL Championship. You got to find your level. You can't get worried about the league politics and the league support. I'm a NISA guy. Well, no, you should be a club guy. If you're supporting your club, that's what's going to last. If NISA doesn't, your club, if they're successful, they're going to find somewhere else. That's what happened with NASL. The clubs that could survive and continue did. NASL as an entity didn't handle things very well, and they blamed everybody else. But there were things that the NASL didn't do well, and they're not around right now. But the teams that were doing well did. It's all about the teams. It's all about your local team. Throw yourself into that. All right, that's going to do it for us. We went way over. Danny LFC, man, showing up. Thank you. We went way over what we planned on. Danny, it is fascinating to see where MLS and USL and just American soccer as a whole, because what we don't have is the history that can constrain it at times. We don't have the tradition that England and other countries do. We get to write it however we want to write it. And I hope that people embrace that, because I think at times there is a push in this country to model it after England or model it after Germany. The U.S. and soccer in this country is not England, and it's not Germany, and it's not Mexico, and it's not Argentina either. It's unique. We can create maybe a better setup in some situations than others. So do it. Don't get hung up on this stuff. Build your local teams. That's what I hope can do. And it'll happen. It'll happen. Ricky's worried about power rankings. I'm assuming they're out. I don't care. I just don't care about power rankings.
I think LAFC just went up another 12.
Oh, I could care less. Can you get a new gimmick for this season, please, on LAFC? Because they're good. They should be high.
So let's see.
They should be high in the power ranking. We can't use that when they're actually good. I don't care. We're not talking about it. We're not going to mention power rankings on the show. I'm not going for it.
I don't see them, and I'm not going to go fishing for it.
They'll be around it too. Don't worry about it. And if somebody disrespects your team on the power rankings, it'll be okay, because the only power rankings that matter are the table. And that's always going to be the only one that matters. I do get into the conversation sometimes around stuff, but the actual power ranking, people disagree with how I look at teams. I disagree with how other people look at teams. That's what we do, right? That's why we love this game so much. Tranquilo, Ricky. You just said it, so I was in the middle of a sentence. You'll be okay. Everybody will be okay. You yell at me all day about all these different things that we need to talk about. So, tranquilo, por favor.
Week 1.
En todo. Tranquilo in general, not about week 1. Tranquilo, everybody.
Yes.
All is good. All is good. But no, I just don't care about power rankings. I don't get too worked up about it. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. That'll do it for us. We are back tomorrow, 9:05. Stoppage time tomorrow afternoon with Mike Conti. Mike Conti will join us tomorrow. We also have Matt Pollard from Last Word on Soccer tomorrow at 10:30 to talk about the Colorado Rapids. Matt's good people. I've been on his shows before. Done interviews with him for shows as well. He'll be with us at 10:30 to talk about the Rapids. Mike will be with us at 10 if he doesn't get pulled into 5 meetings. We'll have stoppage time at 2 o'clock. Mike and Jess will have high school soccer at 6 on the girls' side, Pike County at Whitewater. John will have the boys' game at 8 o'clock. I will have, hopefully, Atlanta United 2 and Chattanooga Red Wolves tomorrow at 7 o'clock on twitch.tv/ATLUTD. Busy day tomorrow, busy day Thursday, then a trip to Colorado, and a game out there this weekend. It's going to get hectic. We got a bunch of guests for you on Thursday as well. Stay tuned. See y'all tomorrow. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.